Tonight, Harley Quinn ends her main series by getting in a giant robot that can fire off butt rockets. Harley Quinn ends her Little Black Book series by getting way too horny with Lobo. And Harley Quinn ends her Gang of Harley series by focusing on the importance of mental health and how some people just need a little bit of extra help to get their way through the day. All that and more tonight on a not-so-new 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 249 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and we are once again in a little epilogue episode, or a CODA, whatever it is I titled this episode. This is books that came out after the New 52 ended, which is to say after the Rebirth one-shot. There were a bunch of them, a good 70 books came out that were just not able to fit in before that date, and that's fine. That's how it plays, but they still got to get done somehow. So, coming up on this week's episode, I'm doing all of the edgier books, and I'm doing Harley Quinn. Goodbye. I can see you leaving. Well, there's no Batman. Well, okay, there's a little Batman. But there is Deathstroke, New Suicide Squad, Batman Beyond, in terms of things that are actually core DC universe. There's the miniseries Bloodlines, which we need to wrap up, and then the rest of the Harley books, which is to say Harley Quinn, 2 issues of that, Harley Quinn and her Gang of Harleys, 4 issues of that, and Harley's Little Black Book, 3 issues of that. And each of those are double length as well, so technically it's close to 6. This will be an exercise in patience, in the ability to deal with the Harley Quinn style of humor, and the ability to know that not a single person is watching this. No, I'm serious. I really appreciate there was an outpouring of support after the final episode, the Rebirth episode, and then going into the epilogue episode. A lot of comments coming in. I really do appreciate that. It feels great to have that right at the end. But I do gotta say, I looked at oh, and are people watching the episode? And there was a little bit for Swamp Thing's final issue, Black Canary's final issue, but the moment I hit Legends of Tomorrow and Dr. Fate, it flatlined like hell, and that was 2 hours of that episode. So, I know you're not here. I appreciate you at least listening to this bit. Thank you, but don't feel like you need to stick around. Just leave a comment. Just say, hey, I definitely watched all that Harley Quinn stuff. You can trust me. And I will. So, yeah, this is probably going to be another 4-hour long episode. I don't know what it is quite yet because I haven't recorded it, but we'll get there. So, yeah, stay tuned for as long as you feel you are able, but I'm here for the long run. Let's jump on in with, I don't know. We'll start with Deathstroke. Deathstroke number 19, written by James Bonny, art by Paolo Pantalena. So last issue we had Deathstroke, Jericho, and Rose going to take out Lawman and whatever group they were called, the Nova Council. And it all went badly because Jericho had to do a psychic whammy on Rose and it seemingly put her on the verge of death. And that's when Ra's al Ghul comes in and says, hey, I can help, but you have to swear allegiance to the League of Assassins, Deathstroke. So we just got a recap of that on the first 2 pages, and then he's like, all right, how are you going to save her? Before I do anything else, how's it going to happen? He's like, I promise you I can. That's what it is. And he's like, nope, I'm going to need more. And Roz pulls out a little elixir thing, and he's like, this should be able to shield her from any sort of mental things going forward and also repair the damage done by Jericho. It's a mystical elixir, and don't question it more than that, but it is temporary and will need re-upping, to which Deathstroke's like, oh, okay, you're making her an addict. You're making her rely on you. That's what you're saying here. And Roz is like, yeah, okay, she's an addict, but she'll live. And Jericho chimes in saying, please, Dad, do it. It's all my fault. So as more Nova Council people come in a helicopter, Deathstroke's like, okay, if you can save her life, then yes, I will swear allegiance to the League of Assassins. And he tells Jericho to hang back with Roz in case Roz needs anything while Deathstroke goes and works out some issues. So he goes in, he starts attacking all these Nova Council's guys. I will say, maybe this has been present across previous issues, but the narration during the scene feels very try-hard. It feels very much of like, all these people show up or whatever, and like I thought that Lawman and Victor sold me out for money, but this seems deeper. Not that it matters because I'm going to kill every last one of them. It's like, okay, this is something at the very least. So we see that he goes through. He just starts slashing through. Meanwhile, Roz and Jericho are back over with Rose. Roz feeds her the elixir and says, okay, Jericho, now I need you to do something. You need to go in and like jumpstart things. She's going to be trapped in whatever mental area she's in. You need to pull her out. And so he goes into her mind. We cut over in between Deathstroke talking to Lawman and stuff like that, but I'll skip that for a second. Jericho goes in, finds Rose out on the beach, and she's like, oh, I'm reliving the last moment that I was happy before Lawman showed up and like took over my mind or whatever. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want that to ever happen again. Jericho's like, it never will. You're totally shielded. We gotta hop out. And he mentions Roz, to which Rose is like, why would she want to help me? Or why would Roz want to help me? And Jericho's like, it's complicated. Don't worry about it. Come on, we gotta hop out. So they deal with that. Deathstroke, meanwhile, starts attacking Lawman and Snakebite, who are there. And, I mean, it's going well. Again, it's very try-hard. They drop their guns and fight just like fist to fist for a while, him versus Lawman. We see Victor comes back, and he's like, all right, enough of this. Like, I get you all want to, like, swing your dicks around, but we need to kill Deathstroke. That needs to happen immediately. So a bunch of the Nova Council guys come in. Snakebite comes into the fight, and Deathstroke picks up a knife and says, when you ran a sword through my daughter, I swore I would cut out your heart. Today's that day. So Snakebite sneaks up, tries to attack Deathstroke. Deathstroke dodges, hits someone else. Deathstroke throws the knife into Snakebite's stomach, which seems to take him out for a second. He steals a gun and starts shooting all of the Nova guys, so that all that left is Lawman. And he's like, all right, this is it. But then Miss Stasia comes in. Remember Miss Stasia? She's around. She does something to affect Deathstroke's vision. He's temporarily blind, which is weird because she says, don't worry, the blindness is only temporary. And then she turns to Lawman or whoever and says, okay, go ahead and kill him. And it's like, what does it matter if it's temporary if you're going to die immediately? However, as they're about to gang up on Deathstroke, that's when Rose and Jericho come out. Lawman tries to flex his powers on Rose again, and she's like, it's not going to work this time. And immediately they're like, okay, we're out, bye. So they all hop on a helicopter and fly away. We then go back to Nanda Parbat, and Roz is giving a big speech in front of his League of Assassins. He's like, yes, there's a war coming our way, but we have new people that will help to join us. Someone else, fresh blood that will fill out our ranks. And he says, yes, we accept our new warriors, Slade Wilson, Rose Wilson, and Jericho. And Deathstroke's like, wait, hold on, that wasn't the deal. And he's like, I can't hear you. Anyway, you're all members of the League of Assassins now. So, yeah, wouldn't you know it, Ra's al Ghul somewhat double-crossed Slade. Who would have thought? It's fine. It's a fine enough issue. I really don't particularly think it's that good of one. And it's strange because obviously we have issue 20 in an annual. It's strange that it feels so much like this is setting up a new status quo when obviously we're just going to be like wrapping up the arc next issue. Like that's the whole thing. So I think the only interesting bit to this really is the Rose stuff. So that's not that big of a deal to it. I'm going to say this is just a 7 for me. It's good. It's a fine enough issue, but it's not doing anything fantastic. Deathstroke number 20, written by James Bonny, art by Paolo Pantalena. So last issue, not only Deathstroke, but also Rose and Jericho were, against their will, brought into the League of Assassins in order to pay back saving of Rose's life. This issue picks up on some random island, currently now, where Roz is chewing out Deathstroke because you betrayed us all, you forfeit your life, how dare you, and they start sword fighting. But we're not there yet. We rewind by 17 hours, where Deathstroke is chewing out Roz and saying, like, hey, the deal was for me, man. I said I would swear my allegiance. You leave the kids out of this. And he's like, hey, I don't control their destinies, like, and neither do you. This is totally on them. And Jericho's just like, hey, look, Roz helped save their life. Like, this is what we got to do. We got to pay it back. And it's like, no, this isn't paying back. You're being coerced. This is blackmail. This is what it is. And Rose is like, look, what difference does it make? Like, either we're fighting a war on our own or we're fighting within this group. Like, either way, this gives us a fighting chance. And Deathstroke, for a moment, acts as a father, and it's just like, I never wanted this life for you. You deserve better. And Jericho's like, hey, it's in our blood, whatever. So Deathstroke probes Roz and says, hey, all right, you mentioned a war earlier. In the previous issue, you said there's a war on the horizon. What's going on? Well, what are we prepping for? And he's like, all in due time. We're not quite there yet. But I will say we are going to take out the Nova Council. That's a big thing. So we cut over to the Nova Council, or rather the Danger Island, the base of the Dead Bastards, which happens to be holding the Nova Council. And all of them realize, like, okay, they're about to attack. Like, the League of Assassins is going to come here and attack us, and we're going to have to fight them off. And some of the people are like, this is going to suck. All of us are going to die. Like, none of this is going to work out well. This is going to be a major problem. Deathstroke knows all of our stuff, all the Dead Bastard security. Like, this is a problem. And it's like, well, that's why we'll have to kill Deathstroke first. And like, as they're talking, and this is only like 1 hour prior to the opening of the issue, we see that the attack is launched. So a bunch of airships are flying in. Roz turns to Rose and says, hey, you need to take another one of your elixir, your mental blocking stuff. Go ahead and chow this down. And Jericho realizes something and turns to Deathstroke and says, hey, that elixir he's giving her, it's not what he says it is. And Deathstroke's like, well, that's kind of the only reason we joined Jericho, so what the hell are you talking about? But before they can continue, all of a sudden their ship gets shot down out of the sky, crashes on the beach. Some of the other ships are landing, but they're like, that was the main one that was holding like Deathstroke and all that. So this should be easy, no problem, because no way he survived that crash. Of course he did. Jericho made a little barrier to protect them all. And he's like, all right, they'll start killing each other out on the beaches or whatever. But Victor, the guy who I want to kill the most because he betrayed me, he is going to be hiding deeper in the base. So we got to go in there and find him. So they make their way down. They rappel down into this big bunker in the ground. And we see a pilot notices them, to which Jericho mind whammies them and says, like, you will not be able to move and call for help. And then as soon as that happens, Roz comes up and stabs him in the stomach. And Jericho's like, hey, he couldn't have moved. Why did you do that? And he's like, you got to eliminate threats, Jericho. You're going to learn that with the League of Assassins. So out on the beach, we see all of the Nova Council are all fighting, but yeah, in the background, Victor's hiding out, and that's where Deathstroke and gang come in. They're like, hey, Victor, we're going to kill you now. That's what's going to happen. But then Roz says, actually, I'd much rather you take him prisoner, and as you work for me, you have to do that. And in the mild distraction there, Victor presses a button, jumps out a trapdoor, and starts running across the island. So it's like, all right, well, now we just got to go give a chase. So now everybody's coalesced together. They're all part of one big fight scene. Mystasia tries to hit Deathstroke with some gas thing. It doesn't end up landing. Rose and Roz are in there slashing bodies left and right. Eventually we get Lawman, who comes in and he's like, ho, I'm going to take control of the League of Assassins with my mental powers. And Roz is like, oh, that's not going to work. I've trained them too well. They're not going to be able to do whatever. So Deathstroke just comes in with a gun and just shoots him in the chest. He's fine, but it takes him out of the fight. And then Victor starts taking shots. Deathstroke just runs over with his sword, cuts off his hand. And he's like, cool, now I'm going to kill you. And Roz says, whoa, okay, everyone pause. Time out. Look, clearly we've beaten you guys. You guys, Nova Council, you have nothing left to do here. However, there is a war looming on the horizon. You may have heard this story before. A war is looming on the horizon, and we need new soldiers in order to fight against it, particularly some meta people. So, Nova Council people, swear your allegiance to the League of Assassins and you all may live. And Mystasia's just like, all right. Lawman's like, cool. Snakebite's like, I guess. And then Victor's like, I solemnly swear. And then Deathstroke just stabs him in the chest anyway. And Roz is like, dude, you work for me. You can't do that. You just betrayed the cause or whatever. And Deathstroke's like, yeah, and I'd do it again. So they start fighting against each other. This is where we opened up the issue with. And Deathstroke's like, oh, all of this whole thing, it wasn't about like me getting my revenge or anything like that. He used me to fill out his own army, and that sucks. Like, screw this. So they start fighting against each other. And Deathstroke's like, oh, don't worry, Roz, I'll kill you here and now. And he's like, bro, I've got like 500 years of training on you. You're not going to be able to win this. And he knocks Deathstroke down. But then Jericho comes in and says, all right, timeout. I'm now calling the timeout. Roz, you lied. That elixir thing is snake oil. It doesn't do anything. The only thing that allowed Rose to come out and like that was shielding her was my abilities. I'm the one that allowed that to happen, and I'm only just now realizing it. So because our entire agreement was based off a lie, we rescind our allegiance to the League of Assassins. And if you try to do anything, I will straight up blow up this island with a psychic attack. And Roz is like, fair enough. You are free to go, so be it, and I hope I never see you again. Deathstroke's like, oh, next time I see you, one of us is going to die. And he's like, yeah, that's the truth. So, for whatever reason, I guess just to get back to status quo, Slade's hair starts graying again. If you remember this entire story, since issue, 1, he's been young. He starts graying again, and Rose is like, oh, Dad, looks like you're finally getting older again. He's like, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. But he realizes, hey, you kids are better off without me. Like, I was wrong to try to bring you in and like try to find you. You both go out, live your life, do whatever, but don't think it's not because I care about you. And before he can finish the sentence, they both give him a big hug, and he sheds a manly tear. They hop on one of the helicopters and fly away. And Deathstroke's like, well, that's it. I'm all on my own again, and I'm going to get off this island and go wherever life takes me, because I'm Deathstroke the Terminator, baby. That's the issue. That's the series. I mean, there is still the annual, which, to be fair, the annual was supposed to be... the annual was released before this, but it's set after this, so whatever. It's fine. Like, I don't know. It's weird because this is a thing that happens in, like, the Harley Quinn books, as I'm reviewing them, which is there's this jumping around of what the problem is, what the arc feels like it should be, and it's this constant evolution of like change and growth and like keeps on bouncing. For this one, it started out with someone hit out on Rose, and we found out it was Lawman, and then it evolved into this Nova Council thing, and that's fine. I'm okay with finding out that there's this bigger purpose behind it. But then we changed the story entirely to, well, the Nova Council doesn't actually matter. It's all about Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins. And that just feels like one jump too far, because now we're not even dealing with what the arc was in the beginning. This is now something completely different, but we never got resolution to the Nova Council stuff. And that's frustrating. I just, I want a little bit of closure. I want a little bit of like, okay, is the Nova Council, was this just one cell of the Nova Council? Is there a larger thing we're going to be dealing with? Doesn't matter. We're not talking about that anymore. So I'm going to say the issue is still fine. It's just not great. So I'm thinking 7, and that's kind of how I feel about this whole last arc. It's just kind of in the 7 territory. It's not bad, but I think if you're coming into this, you got to be accepting that you're not going to get a lot of closure. It's just going to be a lot of sword fights and cutting off hands and stuff. And if you're okay with that, then so be it. But that's Deathstroke. Deathstroke Annual Number 2, written by Phil Hester, art by Mirko, Colak, and Roberto Viacava. So kind of a completely standalone story taking place after Deathstroke number 20. It focuses on a character called the Balkan, and we open in a made-up country called Rapistan, and we see some sort of, I don't know, it's over the course of the story, it's determined that this is somewhat like a mafia, but, a Middle Eastern equivalent of just like a group, but they all engage in crime stuff, so whatever you want to call it. Regardless, they're being attacked by this guy named the Balkan, who's very similar in, stature and all that to Deathstroke. He comes in with a big a spear, and he approaches the eldest son of the Wudesh clan and says, "You're gonna die." And he's like, "Oh, I'll give your message to my father, I promise." And he's like, "Yes, you will, slice." So we fast forward a little bit, and we see walking through this pass into Rapistan is this hooded figure. He's immediately stopped by some guards who are there to basically just shake him down, and they're like, "Oh, well, if you're a tourist, we need to see the sort of things you're bringing in." So they open up his crates, and it's just loaded with weapons. It's Deathstroke. He's like, oh, you see, I'm here to earn my keep. And he forces these guys to start like shooting each other. Like he pulls down their trigger finger and aims it at each other. And as he goes through one by one, eventually there's just a single kid left standing. And he's like, kid, if you were going to shoot me, you would have done it before I got in the past. And he's like, oh, I was told to lead you into danger to see if you were worth it for Lord Kirmani. And he's like, well, you're a bit young for a soldier. And he breaks the kid's finger, being like, that'll heal in a few weeks, but like, let it be a lesson. If you're going to aim a gun at someone, you better be ready to pull the trigger. So we go into the main part of the city. It's called Vakar, and it's the hive of villainy and scum that you'll never see. It's all that sort of stuff. But it's saying that everyone here is religious, but the real prize, the real thing that keeps the city running is opium. And everyone's in on opium. So Deathstroke approaches this group for the Rakani, who's the opposite of the Wudesh, the rival clan. And he's all pissed off. He's like, oh, I was given this by someone who saw the attack happen. It's the spear. Who is this belong to? He's like, oh, this belongs to a guy named the Balkan. He's another professional like me. These things cost like $1,000 a piece, and he's just leaving them behind. So you should know just how much money he is making off of this stuff. And the Rakani guy, his whole thing is that he's got this steel that's stronger than anything else. It's like the best steel ever made. And he has this chain that is meant to have a link added for every next generation as the next person takes over. But because his son's been killed, he's super pissed because his chain ends here. And he's like, I want you to go to the Wudesh people and do the same thing that, like, take them out, do what you got to do there. And they do a little bit here of saying how, like, it used to be peaceful around here, but then the West came in hunting terrorists, and the opium fields that their entire economy was based off of were all burned, so now it's, you know, kill or be killed. But he basically is saying, like, look, I will go after the Balkan, but, like, or sorry, I'm not going to go after the Balkan because that's like way too much. You don't have enough money to do me for that, but I'll do whatever else. And he's like, I want you not to repay exactly the same. You go after the eldest son and you bring me their head. And so Deathstroke, he kind of pals around with the kid. Kid's name is Adi, and he's like, look, Adi, you just call me boss from now on. Bring me a place where no one's going to find us. And so there's this bridge on the outskirts of the city, and Deathstroke pays him in gold and says, look, every day I'm going to give you $1,000 US worth of gold, and whenever we're done here, you're going to be able to buy the whole neighborhood if you want. And he's like, great, cool. So Deathstroke goes out. He goes after the Wudesh clan. There's apparently neighboring camps of these two, and then there's like a strip down the middle where there's like an uneasy truce. Everyone understands, like, this is just the part of the city where both sides are going to be. It's not a turf war. But then Deathstroke realizes that the eldest son is going to be there, and he's like, well, here we go, and he cuts off the guy's head. We see the Balkan is then brought in to talk to the head of the Wudesh, and he's like, they took my son's head. How dare they? I can't even bury him properly. And he's like, yeah, I kind of told you this would probably be the response when we started off with cutting off the first head, you know, but they've got themselves a professional now too. Deathstroke, like, you know, we're strictly assassin. We're not fighting wars or anything like that. So if you want to pick somebody who's not Deathstroke for me to kill, I will gladly do that. And he's like, do it. Like, I don't care. You don't go after Deathstroke. I don't care. But you kill Kirmani, his brothers, the whole damn clan. We're going, like, this is a war, whether you're going to be a soldier or not in it. So we see that there's a truck that's carrying some stuff, and it's caught in a sandstorm. They think they see one of their own coming in, but it's actually the Balkan, who then just absolutely murders everybody. We see Adi then talks to Deathstroke later on. It's like, oh, hey, I saw him. I was looking on from a nearby cliff, and I saw him attacking this thing. He was the coolest. Could you teach me how to do like that? And he's like, you really want to learn how to be like that, Adi? All right, pick up that gun there. Shoot me. And I was like, what? And he's like, shoot me in the chest. Like, you can't miss at this range. He's like, I don't want to. And he's like, and that's why you're never going to be a good hitman. Because if you hesitate for even a second like that, then you are not going to be like one of us. And Adi looks all sad and depressed after that. So yeah, the killing continues. Everything just goes on high. Deathstroke's killing all the Wudesh. Balkan's killing all of the Rakani, whatever they're called. Rakani, there we go. Until finally we get to a point where Deathstroke is called for a meeting with the head of the Rakani. And he's like, look, we're losing men like crazy. We don't have a lot of profits. Those are also going up in flames. So I'm going to have trouble paying you, Deathstroke. I can supplement your fee with product, with opium, if you would like. He's like, I'm not really a dealer. But then before the conversation can reach its natural end, we see that a couple of Wudesh people were caught by the Rakani. They're about to be executed by a group called the Stonecutters. And Deathstroke's like, what do they do? And we see that they have some sort of neurotoxin that they've grown an immunity to. They spray all over their prey before they attack, and it causes them to basically be paralyzed. They sit perfectly still while they do this elaborate like routine around them. So they kill the prisoners, and Deathstroke's like, all right, impressive, but like, I'm not working with them. I work on my own. He's like, fair enough. Just consider them, you're the offense, they're the defense. We'll consider it that way. So later on that night on the outskirts of town, Deathstroke is going to go out and do some stuff, and then all of a sudden an explosion, a big attack, and he realizes, oh, it's the Stonecutters. And he's like, wait a minute, hold on, you guys are double crossing, you guys are doing a whole thing here. And they're like, no, we want to be the sole people that the Rakani are working for here, like that they're hiring. You're just draining into our profits, so we're going to kill you and we're going to take your place. So they fire off a bit of the neurotoxin, but the healing factor that Deathstroke has is pushing through it. And so he's like, all right, well, it's not going to be that easy. And he goes into great descriptions about how they're used to fighting against still targets, or like people who have already been captured. They're not used to fighting against Deathstroke. So he's able to make pretty quick work of them. However, one of them does sneak up behind, and we see that he stabs Deathstroke through the chest, and he's like, all right, well, I'm here to pick up the bounty on your head from the Wudesh, because that's another way we can make some money. And then all of a sudden the Stonecutter is shot. We see that it's Adi. The Stonecutter turns around to kill Adi, and that's where Deathstroke builds up enough energy to kill the Stonecutter. However, the neurotoxin still takes effect. He collapses down, and he apparently passes out for 4 days. Adi is there. He wakes him up, and he's like, hey, at the very beginning of all this, you pointed to a chest and said that I should never ever look inside of it, and that was part of your fee thing. I looked inside of it. Turns out you, Deathstroke, are also the Balkan. You've been playing both sides of this from the beginning so that you always end up on top. And Adi's like, how could you do that? Why would you do that? And he's like, yeah, look, you gotta be able to stoke the flames a little bit. You make the work happen, you got to be able to make that happen. And Adi's like, all right, well, what am I supposed to do now? And he's like, look, this entire town's going to hell. This whole thing's going to go up in flames. You should just probably get out of here. You got family elsewhere? He's like, yeah. He's like, go to them. Don't worry about this. You can here's some extra gold for you for my days that I was out, that you took care of me. Like, you get out of here, and I'm going to finish things up here. So we see he starts leaving, but then Adi is like, you know what? I'm not ready to leave. And as the thing is well out of town, he jumps off the caravan and starts running back. We then see Deathstroke meets up with Lady Wudesh and is just like, hey, I'm here to kill you. Like, that's what's going to be. You're going to die because I was told by the Rakani that you need to die. And she's like, fair enough. I saw this coming to begin with. However, he explains what the true purpose of all this was. This wasn't from the Rakani. He says, this is from a woman named Marion Alavi. And he passes her a little gift box and says, she was a teacher here, and she was always trying to give a better life for her students. She was willing to give up everything for that. Your men killed her. And because she was trying to like help people get out and like do whatever, they burned her school to the ground. Her father is a very rich and influential person and far more vengeful than she was. And immediately the Wudesh lady's like, oh, what? So he wants revenge on us? Like, that's why you're coming to kill me? And he's just like, no, not just you, not just your family, not even your clan, the entire city. He wants to burn down the country of Rapidash or whatever it's called. And when she opens up the box, inside is a radio detonator, and she's like, here's the deal. I have been around both your guys' places, your compounds, and I've been layering it up with massive amounts of explosives. I am going to kill you today. You are going to die. But if you press that, then not only will you go, but also the Rakani will go as well. And I think you've got just enough vengeful blood in you to make that work. However, Deathstroke didn't account for everything. He suddenly gets choked out by the steel of the Rakani. Turns out that Kirium or whatever his guy named Kermani He's there, and they're like, hey, we're not fools. We're not idiots. You disappeared for 4 days at the same time that the Balkan disappeared for 4 days. We put that together, man. We understood what was going on there. So we are going to come together. We're going to rebuild an empire, and we're bound by hate, but we're still bound to this land. We're not going to let you do this. And so Kermani goes to choke out Deathstroke, and Deathstroke's like, do you really think I gave you the only detonator? And he presses the button, and the whole compound goes up, including the other compound. Both of them explode. He, next morning, crawls out of the wreckage, gets on a motorcycle, starts driving out of town. As he drives out, he passes by Adi, and he's like, Adi, wait, where are you going? What's going on? And Adi just silently walks right by him, doesn't do anything. Deathstroke gets a call from the guy who hired him, the father of the teacher, and says like, hey, I saw on the news this huge explosion. Is my daughter avenged? Did you kill all the monsters that live there? And he says, yeah, and hangs up. And then he looks up at Adi and says, all but one. And we see Adi is walking into town again with a gun in hand and one of the Balkan spears that he took from Deathstroke, implying that, oh no, the cycle of violence will repeat. I really like this one. I think this is prime Deathstroke, where Deathstroke needs to be self-serving to a point where that's his villainy. He's not going out there and just murdering people because he wants to do it. He's going out there and killing people because, like, it's what he does. And, like, it's all part of the job. As long as he has a contract, he can justify it. And the idea that he's willing to destroy this entire country and all the lives of the people within because one guy paid him to do it, and he goes through such underhanded tactics to do it as well. That's the stuff that makes a good Deathstroke story for me. I don't want to see the inner turmoil of, like, the goodness of, like, oh, I want this for my family or whatever. That's, you can have that occasionally. You can have that as a backdrop. But the main story is this sort of stuff. So, yeah. I really, really liked it. I'm hesitating between an 8 and an 8.5. I'll say an 8.5, honestly. I think this is, out of this entire Deathstroke book, this is probably the best that it's been. I really, really like this one. So, kudos to Phil Hester. New Suicide Squad number 21, written by Tim Seeley, art by Juan Ferreyra and Gus Vazquez. So, yeah, we're still continuing on, and I mean, this is the finale of the entire Fist of Cain castle stuff. So we open up this issue. Oh, yeah, last issue, Deathstroke got shot by Death Trap or whatever. It's, who cares? So this issue picks up with Boomerang coming in. He's manages to sneak up on the guy behind the computer chair and just being like, oh, hey, what's going on there? He's like, running the cameras throughout the castle. He's like, that's neat. What's this big red button do? He's like, oh, that's a lockdown. He's like, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and deal with this. So then we cut across to Harley, Diablo, and Cheetah, who are fighting against that personification demon of the rose tattoo or whatever. Basically, it's just Diablo saying like, hey, back when I, was in the gang, I did all my firepower stuff and like I caused problems or whatever. I snapped when I was going after to be able to get vengeance or whatever. I used my flames and I saw red, but it wasn't red for like the color of justice or whatever. It was blood. It was the rose tattoo. And we see Roses stabbing Cheetah and just like, oh, you think you can get on me? Like, get on my level, bitch. So then we cut back over to Deathtrap, who is being applauded by Adam Reed and all that. Like, oh, hey, you killed Deadshot. Congratulations. And just like, yep, all right, well, tell my tale. Tell me I'm the one who killed Deadshot. He's like, oh, I'll write it right into my first sermon. And he stabs Deathtrap in the neck, and Deathtrap also goes down. So now we've got Adam Reed, the guy who's trying to lead the whole Fist of Cain. He puts on like a cloak and they're sitting there in front of a temple or whatever. And they take Amanda Waller's unconscious body and lay it into the arms of the saint. And they're just like, okay, hold on, I gotta run some lines. And he starts like talking about like, oh, my dad wanted me to continue in his footsteps, but I knew humanity had to evolve, yada, yada, yada. And then we see that he calls out to all the disciples of the Fist of Cain. He's like, hello, everyone. I threw this entire party here to reunify us after our anti-messiah's passing, and to celebrate, I gave you the Suicide Squad. And all I ask in return is that you view me as your new prophet, your new leader. Allow me to shepherd you. And he starts going into like his qualifications, but he's like, first I ask you go to your homepage and check this out, because you will get to see the death of the great Amanda Waller. And Harley's like, oh no, they're going to kill her. And Diablo's like, I'm sorry, isn't that a thing that we all generally want? And it's like, yeah, but like in a nice way, by one of us, like hands of a friend, not like this. This is too much. And Diablo's like, okay, Harley, if we're going to do something about that, you need to know, I think that the rose tattoo demon lady thing followed me here. It's my sins. It's my abilities, whatever. Hell has been sending demons after me to punish me. So I'm the one who has to deal with this. So he steps out and just firepowers Rose, allows for Cheetah to get away. And Harley's like, but wait, what if she takes you with her? And it's just like, oh, it's okay. I've already been to hell. So their fight continues on. And just to specifically put a little thing on it, he throws huge amounts of fire at her, calls her out for like, oh, demons have followed me my whole life. I'm going to be the one that sends you back. And we see that it seems like he does, but also there's this giant like skull flame pattern on the ground. So perhaps he was taken with as well. Who knows? Going back to Reed and all that, we see that as he's preparing for his thing, ready to kill Amanda, one of his henchmen goes over and checks Deadshot and notices that the bullets that were fired by Deathtrap are not real bullets, they're rose petals. And as Adam's about to go for the final stab, the henchman's like, wait a minute, hold on, they're alive. And Deadshot just kicks the guy in the back and then calls out to Deathtrap being like, really, rose bullets, that's what we went with here? And so it's like, yep, that's the kind of gun I made, one that fires rose bullets. So they start attacking Adam, everyone else. They stab him through the hand, so he has to drop his knife. And we see that the people who are watching this on the stream are like, oh, hey, it seems like everything's going crazy up there, but Amanda Waller and her points are now up for grabs. So everyone starts making their way over there. Deathtrap makes another gun, because of course that's his power, it's what he does. And then we switch over to Harley and Cheetah, who also enter the room. They also get in there. And Cheetah's like, okay, well, if we're one of the first people in here, then I'm going to be the one that kills Amanda. And she jumps in, is ready to start going. However, I genuinely can't tell what he's doing here. He presses a button. I mean, Adam Reed does. He presses a button, and something happens with the bomb in Cheetah's neck. It doesn't explode, but it stops her. And I guess it's prime. Maybe it makes a beeping noise. Who knows? Regardless, he stands up and he's like, oh, all of my followers, you will now watch. I will be the one to murder the Suicide Squad. And he has his hand raised up with the button for the bombs, and then, wouldn't you know it, boomerang through the window, cuts off his hand. The hand lands directly in the hands of Amanda Waller, and Boomerang's like, all right, everyone, I'm a genius. I found the control center and got the gates down, so let's get the hell out of here. So at that point, everyone starts getting up, doing whatever they can. Death Trap, I'm always going to mix up that and Dead Shot, Jesus. Deathtrap is also like a little bit hesitant, but Deadshot's like, hey, we got to get out of here. If you come with us, Amanda Waller will at least let you live. Like, she won't let you die. That's the most I can say for it there. And it's like, oh, well, the game's not over. The whole Fist of Cain is coming down on us right now. I got to give you guys time to escape. And so he puts his hand on the castle and starts turning the entire castle into a giant-ass gun. And he's like, yeah, well, this place survived 2 world wars. It ain't going to survive Deathtrap. So everyone starts making their escape. Adam Reed's just left there, and Harley comes up being like, you thought you could out-evil us, the Suicide Squad. You made a deal with demons, and you didn't even realize it. So they all start bailing. Deadshot is now the only one that's left with Deathtrap, and Deathtrap's like, hey, technically, if I do this, I would be the one that would killed you. It would have been my power. You sure you don't want to stick around? You don't want to stay? It'd be a worthy death, killed by a giant gun. And Deadshot's like, I don't know, that does sound tempting, but then all of a sudden a boomerang on a rope wraps around his stomach, and written on it is, "You owe me," and he gets pulled out by an airlift with Boomerang on the lead. So everyone made it out as the whole damn castle comes down. We then cut to sometime later. Waller's on the phone, and she's talking up Mr. Ashmore. If you don't remember, that is Hunky Punk. He's a guy who went in there and almost immediately died. And he's like, oh yeah, he did his best for his world and his country. He truly was a good soldier. He died for us. It's best to remember him as a hero. So that's all on talks to the president. And then we see that she exits out of the room, and she's met with a Miss Moreau, and basically just starts delivering the same talk she provided to Ashmore, saying like, now, as I understand it, France has a bunch of supervillains you're wanting to deal with, correct? And our final page is dead shots on the toilet. Harley comes into the stall next to him and is just like, oh, hey, I'm glad you didn't rat out our lunch lady who helped us get out of here. Fair enough. And Harley's just kind of emo. She's feeling a bit upset. She's like, oh, I was gonna, I don't think I could trust anyone after everything that just happened. I was gonna write myself some love letters, but I'm not allowed to talk to myself anymore. Boy, it should be nice to hear some uplifting messages. And Deadshot's like, Harley, you like the color red, and so do I, which means you at least have a decent taste in hues. And she's like, oh, thanks, Deadshot. I really need to hear that. So here's my new escape plan. Laugh track, Looney Tunes, bubble closing, end of issue. Yeah. I mean, it's the end of an arc. Next issue is either going to be an epilogue or it's going to be a totally separate thing. But I'm fine with the issue. Like, this whole arc, I'm fine with. I think I kept expecting it to go with something bigger. I kept expecting there to be like, I don't know, not a metaphysical threat, but like the rose tattoo lady. That's kind of where I felt like the peak was going to be at. The idea of, they brought this up in the beginning of the arc, saying like, don't trust the woman with the rose tattoo. And then it's literally a demon that is known for murder, while there is a cult that worships murder around them. That seems like the big threat. But by the time we hit the end, it's just taken out by El Diablo, who, by the way, does not show back up here. So I guess he's in hell. I don't know. Beyond that, it's a fine enough issue on its own. I kept expecting the arc to go bigger than it was, and that's just not what it was. It was just survive the night, escape from New York, So I'm gonna say, I don't think this is the peak of the arc, so I think I'm gonna say this is a 7, but it still is good. It's, for what it is, it's a solid enough issue. So yeah, that's New Suicide Squad. New Suicide Squad number 22, written by Sean Ryan, art by Ronan Cliquet. So, yeah, Sean Ryan's back. He's the one who kicked off, I believe, the whole New Suicide Squad book, if I'm remembering that correctly. But this issue is very much just its own thing. It's a standalone of what's going on in Harley's head. What's happening? We open with her on a therapist couch. And the therapist, whose face is obscured, is saying like, Harley, you're awfully quiet. You got to speak to me. I can tell you something's bothering you. What's going on in that brain of yours? And we cut to inside, and we see that she's just holding her head, complete darkness. She's like, there's nothing anywhere here. It's too quiet. I'm going insane. But then she looks over and she sees a doorway that's surrounded by a red light. And she starts making her way over to it, and she hears music. It sounds like fun, but then all of a sudden she's stopped by Batman, and Batman's like, don't go there, Harley. You know how it ends. And for some reason, Batman's wearing like really big, ridiculous sunglasses that are also red. And it's like, oh, come back. Just be here. What are you afraid of? She's like, I'm not afraid of nothing. I just want to have fun. And so she pushes open the door, and inside is a amusement park. It's a carnival sort of thing, and everything's red. And she comes up to a roller coaster called the Death Trap, and it's saying like, oh, please be warned that the Death Trap is an obviously dangerous attraction. Do not ride under any circumstances. She's like, of course. And she hops onto it. It starts going around, and then all of a sudden the color scheme changes to green, white, and purple. And she's like, oh, wait, I don't like this anymore. I want to get off. And she sees that the roller coaster track just cuts off at a certain point. She hits it, it goes flying, and we land in what appears to be a snowbank, but it turns out it's teeth. And she's like, ow, this hurts. What's going on? So all of a sudden, she starts riding down the Hill of Teeth. She makes her way over to the exit to what the sign calls it is the abusement park. Very clever. And she sees a house, and she's like, oh, that house looks pretty safe, but it's so far away. I just got to be able to reach it. And she ends up tripping as this wave of teeth that have now formed a huge crooked smile crashes down on her. We then see Harley, I don't know. It says 15. There's a bit later where it's much younger and she looks the same, but it says 15 years old. And she's sitting there talking to who I believe is her mother at a dinner table. And she's like, oh, I hope you're thinking about what you did. This childish behavior needs to stop. And she's like, oh, I just wanted to have some fun. When's Dad coming home? And this part gets so goddamn confusing because every panel is intercut between Harley's mom dressing her down and basically saying, like, where do you think you're going with this? Where do you think this is going to lead you? Like, you're going to regret everything in your life if you keep down this path. And then the other part of it is Harley, as a psychoanalyst, as a therapist, is talking to whoever's in charge of the Arkham stuff. And she's basically saying, I'm bored. All of these inmates are stupid. Like, I'm not getting anything out of them. And he's like, well, we do have one new guy. He's pretty messed up. He's pretty I'm not sure it's going to be something you are going to be able to handle. You sure? Like, you're more than welcome to stay with your regulars. And she's like, oh, let me at him. I'm in. We then cut to in the mother plot, the father comes home and she runs to him. She looks, she's like 5 years old, but the father comes home, she runs over, the mom and dad start fighting immediately, and then she gets upset and looks down at her toys, and all of a sudden the toys transform into some version of the Suicide Squad, where like a marionette puppet turns into Deadshot, and there's also a boomerang and all this other stuff. And as they're fighting against this stuff, Harley's looking around and seeing like how ridiculous the fight is because they look like toys and they're all fighting against like dinosaurs and stuff like that. And Harley's like, this is ridiculous. What's wrong with you people? But they all get blasted back. We see there's this huge scattering of panels of Harley not knowing what's going on. Her mother saying that her father's dead. We see her father seemingly in a coffin saying, come on, honey, lighten up. And then all of a sudden, as everything snaps back, we get a huge like Joker grin, like demonic looking face. And then Harley calls out to herself. The psychotherapist calls out and says, Harley, hey, what's up? And Harley's like, hey, I don't want to. And she's like, don't want to what? She's like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to think about this anymore, any of this stuff. And Harleen, as I'll call her, is like, hey, I'm just trying to help you. Harley, I'm trying to figure out why you're trapped. You're stuck in a cycle. You can't seem to escape. I want to set you free. And Harley goes, yeah, well, thanks for nothing. And we see, of course, her talking to herself was all in her head because she snaps out of it and she's just sitting in this cell in almost complete blackness, and the end. I chuckle because it's just such a sudden ending. Like, this entire book just zooms right by. It's not bad. By no means is it a bad issue. For a final issue of New Suicide Squad, it feels weird that it's so Harley-centric. It feels weird that we're specifically focusing on that. I think that's my only real thing that I want to narrow in on, is saying, like, yeah, it's a good issue, but it's a good issue for, like, a Harley one-shot, not a New Suicide Squad finale. Beyond that, I mean, art's fine. The imagery, a bit heavy-handed at time, but when we get into the family stuff, that's the one thing that I have a blind spot on, is I know I've read issues about Harley's, like, home life and how she grew up, and, like, I think she has a bunch of brothers and something like that, but I don't, like, none of it keeps. None of it stays in my head. So in terms of her with, like, relationship with her father and all that, I don't know. I have no idea if any of it's accurate. So, yeah, I'm going to say this one, it's going to be divisive. Like, if you're reading this, I don't know if you're going to agree with me. You might think I'm too low or too high, but I think this one for me is just going to be like a 6.5. I think it's a fine enough issue. It's good on its own in, like, if you want a Harley, just the mental state of, but that's not what I was reading this book for. And I do have to take the title into account when I'm thinking of, does this fit the vibe of the book that we've been doing? And in that instance, I say no. So 6.5, but still an interesting read at the very least. Batman Beyond number 13, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Bernard Chang. So last issue we had Tim fighting against the villain Rewire, and he's wanted for murder or whatever, and Rewire did something to Tim's suit, and he ended up falling off a building. So this issue picks up. Tim is currently drowning. He's in some water, and he's flashing through his light. He's like, I was a Teen Titan. I identified Bruce Wayne as Batman, and then alternate timeline for Future's End. I fell in love with a girl named Madison Payne, and now I'm here, and I'm living the life of someone else, of Tieri, and all this. And honestly, it's smothering me. I kind of just want to let go. And Barbara's calling over the comm saying, hey, you got to wake up, you got to do whatever. But Tim just isn't responding. She looks at the suit, sees that the oxygen system, for whatever reason, did not activate. So she's like, well, I've only got one shot. And she does a zap, a defibrillator onto the entire suit, which snaps Tim out of it. He mentally activates the oxygen system. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm good, I'm cool. And so he swims up to the surface, and Barbara's like, yeah, he booted you into the river, your suit stopped working, somehow he blocked the link, but we need to run a full diagnostic, so get back over here. And we see they're running it, and they can't figure out exactly what's going on there. Barbara is thinking like, okay, well, I don't love the fact that I'm stepping in to be your Bruce, the person in the chair and all that, especially when I'm commissioner. I should be out helping people because, like, there's a bunch of messed up stuff, but, like, you need my help. So your suit, however, looks fine. It looks good. So we don't know what's up. What we do know is that Rewire stole a top secret, powerful battery, and he probably wants to use it as a weapon. And as they're walking through the Batcave, Tim sees the Red Robin suit behind glass, and he's like, wait a minute, a memorial? Like, why that? I didn't die. And it's like, well, yeah, you didn't die, but like, you disappeared. Did you not even think about what happened with all the time travel shenanigans and whatnot? And he's like, not really. She's like, for all we know, Tim Drake just vanished one day, and there was no trace of him. And of course, Batman went freaking crazy trying to figure out that mystery. And now here you are all this time later. Like, it drove him to the edge, and he didn't know what was happening. We then flash back to a previous story. Barbara's kind of like explaining things and saying, okay, so our Tim had been gone for years when Tieri became Batman, and he wanted to get in Bruce's good graces by solving that mystery, by solving what happened to Tim. So he goes around asking for information. He goes down to this club that is like the center of the underworld, and then he meets up with a guy named Terminal, who in Batman Beyond lore was leader of the Jokers. But I guess now he runs this club. And Terminal's like, I'm busy, what do you want? And he's just like, oh, Tim Drake, what do you know? Red Robin, what happened to him? And it's like, oh, has any history, nobody knows what happened to him. Some people say he's living up on a mountain in Tibet. Other people say he's dead. And it's like, what do you think? And he's like, Gotham does not have a Bermuda Triangle. Red Robin is dead. But if you want some information as to who did it, I happen to know that there was one villain who very much enjoyed the fact that he could kill Robins. And Tim puts it together as the story's being told of like the Joker. He went looking for the Joker, but wasn't the Joker already dead by that point? And Barbara's like, well, yeah, but it's the Joker. Like, he doesn't stay down for long. So yeah, he kept looking the same way you need to keep looking for Rewire. The next, like, 12 pages of this story are told top half, bottom half, where the top half is Tieri in the past looking for Joker, going to a funeral home where he was supposedly cremated. And then the bottom half is the same funeral home, but now Tim's going there looking for Rewire. And it's because security cameras caught a glimpse of him sneaking through the door a few minutes ago. So all the panels are mirrored, like all the actions that are happening are very much mirror things. There's no good way for me to go through it back and forth, so I'm just going to tell each story independently. In the top half story, Bruce is telling Tieri, like, hey, don't do this, the Joker's dead. I checked, like, he's definitely gone. He's like, well, then there shouldn't be a problem, but like, I need to look for myself. And he opens up one of the caskets, and inside is a grinning Joker just saying, hello, old friend. So immediately Bruce is like, that's impossible. It can't be him. There's no way that's true. But Terry's like, well, he's here and he's attacking me. So some Joker toxin or some poison gets dosed into the air. Bruce tells Tieri to switch over to oxygen, and he's like, no, that can't be the Joker. It just cannot be. Tieri throws some batarangs, manages to get up and close with the Joker, and as he does, he sees it's a mask, takes it off, and this is all just the Joker's gang. Terminal led him into a trap, and he's like, oh, I fell for the oldest trick in the book. So he quickly fights against all of them, and Bruce is like, oh, I keep saying you got a lot to learn. Cut back to the Batcave. Terry's ready for a tongue lashing, ready for being chewed out on that. And Bruce is like, you know what you did wrong. Like, and you already called it out. You positioned yourself, you gave up too information, and that allowed Terminal to say whatever he wanted to put you in that trap. So, yeah, just trust me, Tim Drake is gone. He fell off the face of the earth. It's hard to accept, but that's it. And he never really wanted the role. Like, he was always looking like he was somewhere else. So all I can hope is that wherever he's at, he's well and happy. So that's all that story. And then cut to the stuff that's actually going on. Tieri enters the funeral home, and as he steps inside, there's some readings that say that he's not alone. Something's going on. We see in the next room, there's Rewire, and his face is covered in shadow. And as soon as Tim comes across him, he's like, oh, leave me alone. Get out of here. And Barbara's like, wait a minute. We know Rewire's Davis Dusk. That doesn't sound a damn thing like him. And he looks bigger, too. Something there is different. So Rewire starts shocking him, and he's like, look, I just want to be left alone. I just want to stay alive. And you're going to try to stop that for me. And he shocks Tim some more. Starts throwing punches, saying, like, look, without that battery, I die. You want to charge me for murder. You want to take me away. But the suit destroyed my heart. I have no choice. I won't let you kill me. And he gets like right up on Tim, starts like trying to choke him out. And eventually he does that same thing where he interferes with the suit. The suit gets an overload command. And Barbara's seeing this happen like, wait, what? That's not possible. How can he cut into your psychic link? So Rewire flees. We cut back over to the Batcave. And he's like, yeah, I was knocked unconscious when I woke up. He was gone. How can he jump in the middle? Like, the suit should only be tied to the person who's wearing it. And she's like, yeah, well, also, we found that Davis Dusk was reported dead. His body was found weeks ago, so it's not him. Someone else, some complete unknown is inside that suit, and he's able to use some unknown technology to hack into the bat suit. It's a real problem here. This is something that we're going to have to try to stay aware of. And as they're walking out of the Batcave, Tim's like, I wish Tieri was still around, because, like, this whole world is crazy, man. I don't know how I'm going to be able to adapt to it. And then Barbara, we continue past all the comparison stuff. Barbara's like, yeah, I guess I consider this normal because I grew up with it. But yeah, you were just dropped into it. So, sorry that happened. And he's like, no, I mean, like, when Tieri died right in front of me, I never thought I would be in his place. Like, that's insane. And Barbara's like, don't worry, it'll get better. But right now, let's focus on Rewire. So then we cut over to Rewire, who shows up in a construction site. The attack from Batman took a lot out of him. This voice from the side is saying, like, oh, you aren't well. Batman's always tried to persecute you. He killed your predecessor as well. It's all him. You're doing him proud by continuing his work. And Rewire's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I need to stay alive. That's really important to me. And he's like, yes, of course. I'll make sure that we can keep finding those batteries. But for that to happen, and a hand outstretches, and I can't remember his name. But a hand outstretches, and he says, Batman must die. And he's got like the spiral on his face. He's from the show. I remember him from the show. But yeah, he's there. And the other thing is we finally get to see the face of the person who is Rewire, and it's Terry McGinnis. No points if you guess that one. It's interesting. I like the whole comparison bit. Art-wise, that's fantastic. Bernard Chang, you get an 11. In terms of the reveal of it being Terry, I guess it does make sense to a point where this is not the same Future's End timeline. This is a different one. They just explicitly said that, of like, that timeline was erased and rewritten. Now we're in this one. So theoretically, Terry never died, but that is to say that he is still gone. So something happened, and to have him pop up here, chronologically, it makes sense. From a story, the explanation of why he disappeared and where he went, that's up for debate, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Overall, it's a fine enough issue. I do, again, that extended sequence of the comparisons, it's done very, very well. No notes on that. The only thing I'll say as a negative is the issue opening up with Tim just kind of giving up, just saying like, oh, I could die here. Like, that doesn't feel like Tim. That feels like a bit much. It comes out of nowhere, but little things. I'm going to say this is still, I'll give it the 8, just for the creativeness of that little middle section there. It's done very well. I appreciate it. And yeah, let's see what else happens. Batman Beyond number 14, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Bernard Chang. So last issue we had the reveal that Spellbinder, who I didn't know the name of last issue, but it is said in this one, is behind all of this. And then Tieri is actually Rewire. He's alive and he's working as, I don't know, enforcement or whatever. It seems like he's unaware of what's going on, though. So we pick up this issue where Tim is running through the outside, like, wooded area of Gotham City with Matt. And he's like, hey, look, the world is crazy. I'm having some trouble adjusting. Like, I should have brought you here months ago. And Matt's like, it's fine. I get it. I haven't been that cool to you either because I've been upset about my brother being dead. Like, that's a whole problem, but I just miss him. And it's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And Matt brings up, like, look, here's the thing. We're going to recap what happened in Batman Beyond to an extent of, like, and I assume, look, I haven't seen this episode. I have no idea if this is how it happened, but the idea of it is that one day Matt and his friends, the whole computer system went down, and because they're in the future, no school could happen. So they were all let out. They're just walking around Gotham when all of a sudden they hear this ear-piercing screeching sound nearby, and they see Batman, Tieri, is fighting against Shriek down on the ground, one of his villains. And Shriek is using some sonic technology to cause some major chaos and whatever else going on. Tieri throws some batarangs, tries to take him out, but Shriek just tears it apart. He's like, is that really the best you can do? Nah, it's not going to do anything at all. So he keeps on trying to attack, and finally Shriek's like, you know what? You're a nuisance. I'm going to take care of things because you can either come after me or you can save these kids. And he uses his sonic power on the bridge, starts to cause it to collapse, and Terrier's like, whoops, got to deal with that. So he goes up and he grabs 2 of the kids, but only 2 of the 3. And he looks at them and he's like, wait a minute, I know you. You're a friend of Matt's. And he's like, yeah, Matt, he was with us. And Terrier's like, oh my God, I lost my brother. So he runs back over to the wreckage. He starts tearing through it, and eventually he finds Matt's body. And Terrier's like, he's breathing, but it's bad. It looks really, really bad, Bruce. And he's just like, is it okay? Take care of him. So we cut back to Tim and Tieri, who are still running through. Eventually they reach Wayne Manor, and Matt, or I say Tim and Tieri, Tim and Matt. Matt's eventually just like, I was fine. It was a few broken bones. It was whatever. I fell just like perfectly or whatever. And Tim's like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, for the brief period I met Tieri, like, he seemed like a good dude. And the only reason that I found out that he was Batman was because when he showed up in Future's End, he did some weird kung fu move that only Bruce knew. So that was definitely the in that I knew to be able to work with him. So then we go back to the flashback. Matt's in the hospital. He's getting treated for it. Terri's there and just like, oh, Tieri, you were in an accident, or Matt, you were in an accident. I'm so sorry. I should have been there and all that stuff. And he's like, no, it was my fault. Like, there was a supervillain battle going on. I shouldn't have been around just watching or whatever. And Terri's like, no, it's just, you did what any should have done. It's Batman's fault. More than that, it's my fault. It was irresponsible. Batman should have cleared out the area. And Matt's like, how is this your fault? What? You weren't even there, man. And he says, no, I was there. I was consumed with the idea of adventure and fighting and all that. I should have been more forward thinking. And I was like, what's going on? And Terri's like, it's my fault you're here. And I need to show you this. I should have shown you this a long time ago. And he puts on the bat suit, and Matt's like, wait, seriously? And he's like, yes, it's real. And I want you to know, and I'm so sorry. And then at that exact moment in this timeline is the moment where Brother Eye attacks. And Terri's like, I gotta go deal with this. I promise I'll explain everything when I get back. And he flies off. And as we get back into Wayne Manor, Matt explains, yeah, he went off. The Gotham, like, grid or whatever went down because of Shriek's attack. We got it back up the next day, which is why Gotham stayed mostly safe from Brother Eye. But Tieri went out in the meantime. I guess he then time traveled, and then Future's End happened. So all that happens, and Tim's like, okay, well, he revealed it to you. That's part of the thing. Now you're going to learn all of it. And he goes to the grandfather clock, opens up the passageway down to the Batcave, and we get inside. Barbara's already down there doing the stuff, and she's like, you sure this is a good idea, Tim? And he's like, yep, we owe it to him and to Tieri. Like, this is absolutely what we're doing here. Anyway, what do we know about Rewire? And she's like, dick diddly. We got nothing. All we know is that he's not Davis Dusk, and there's someone else in the suit. So we then cut over to somewhere else in Gotham, and we see a little old lady is entering a home, and she's like, oh, Davis, I'm home. And we see Tieri, who I'm just going to say, you know, he believes he's Davis. We'll get there. The little old lady walks in, and her name is Mrs. Shelby, and she's like, oh, are you still feeling poorly? Like, the way that you've been treated throughout your life, I'm sure that you're feeling upset. And she's like, yeah, let me help you with the groceries. And he's saying how hard it is to remember certain things, how hard it is to go through. And Miss Shelby's like, well, I remember when I first saw you. And she talks about the Brother Eye attack, how he was leaping through the battlefield, attacking the robots, and he was actually winning, but it was a hard-fought battle, and he collapsed, and he was on death's door right there on the battlefield until Mrs. Shelby came in and says, oh, I'll take you to a hospital. I'll get you all the help you need. And Rewire says, no, they'll arrest me. And it's like, why would they arrest you? And he's like, I don't know. I just feel like they would. And she's like, fair enough. We'll come back to my apartment. So she drags Rewire back to the apartment. Inside, there's a guy who's doing some looting. He pushes down Mrs. Shelby as he runs out, and Rewire, again, it's not actually, but we just got to run with this, tries to give chase. However, his heart starts to give out. He's like, oh, this suit, it's wired directly into my heart, and it needs constant charging. This is a really stupid thing. And she's like, oh, that's fine. I just happen to have a drawer full of batteries. And so she hands one over to him. He's doing better. And he says, look, this is clearly a dangerous neighborhood, so I'm going to be staying with you, Mrs. Shelby, to make sure that you're safe. Cut back to what is actual now, and Mrs. Shelby's like, well, I'm glad you did, but you still need more and more powerful batteries. It's good that you've got a knack for stealing them from other places, but the real problem is Batman. Batman wants you to be dead. He's always trying to stop you. And Rewire's like, that doesn't seem right. I don't particularly think that's... And she's like, no, it's true. He hates you. He thinks you suck. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know. And then all of a sudden we see the image falters. Mrs. Shelby turns into Spellbinder, and it says, like, you must kill the Batman before he kills you. And Terry's like, I must kill the Batman before he kills me. It's like, oh, okay, good. Glad that you thought that, not me. That was a you thing. So, yeah, it's all Spellbinder. That's all it is to begin with. It's fine. It's a nice little, like, recap memory issue. It shows, you know, Terry's been brainwashed. How is he alive? I think I posited last issue that it was timeline differences, which makes sense, but you'd literally pull anything out at this point and be like, yeah, no, time travel, whatever, who cares? I guess I just need to see how it plays out. I think that's the biggest thing here, is whether or not it's going to be satisfying is 100% how far they want to take this and how much they're going to really lean into kill the Batman compared to not. Because I think I want it to feel good. I want it to feel earned when Tieri breaks through the programming, when, like, the brainwashing stops, whatever. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I want it to feel earned. And if it doesn't, then that's going to be, like, my only real negative here. So I'd say this one is still like 7.5. It's solidly good. I don't have any issues with it, but I'm just holding back a little bit from, like, really great. Art, however, is fantastic. 11 out of 10 constantly. So yeah, it's solid. I think that's the best I can really say for it. It's a solid next issue, but we're just waiting to see what the actual next step is going to be in the fight against Rewire and, by extension, Spellbinder. Batman Beyond number 15, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Bernard Chang. So last issue was kind of just more elaboration, the backstories of when Matt found out about Tieri being Batman, and also how Tieri somehow ended up as Rewire working under Spellbinder. This issue picks up a couple of days later, seems like, or at least soon afterwards. There's some blackouts going on in Gotham, and both Barbara as Commissioner and Tim as Batman are going out and doing their best to deal with the situation, which is basically just stop looters. That's all that's mainly going on here. So they're stopping at a pharmacy for people who are stealing meds and whatnot. They take all the looters, wrap them all up, and then we find out that Matt, who has been introduced to the Batcave, is now the man behind the chair. He's the one sitting there. He's looking at all the information and whatnot, and he's telling Tim, hey, there's more looters on the east side of the town. Like, this whole other thing's going on. There's another blackout. Like, they keep on happening, and it seems completely random. Like, it's not even this. This is worse than it was back during the war against Brother Eye. Like, it's weird. And Batman's like, all right, I'll go deal with it. Barbara, you can catch up. So they go off to do their thing. And we see standing on a rooftop is Mrs. Shelby, who's actually Spellbinder, and Rewire. And just like, all right, they're going off. They're going to do their thing. Now's your chance. They want you dead, Rewire. You better do it. And Rewire's like, yes, I must. So Barbara, driving her car over, she comes to the conclusion very quickly of, this is too weird. There's no way this is accidental. I need to look up some of this stuff. But before she can do anything, there's a pedestrian in the road, and a car alerts her of it, and it's Rewire, to which he zaps the ground, causes her car to explode up into the air and flip over top of her, or over him, and Barbara crawls out of the wreckage, gun drawn, being like, oh yeah, think again if you think that was enough. He zaps the gun away, and she just comes in with some kung fu. However, kung fu kick to the head kicks off the helmet, and she immediately is like, oh, you're Tieri. Tieri, what are you doing, man? And you hear Mrs. Shelby from the background being, that's not Tieri, that's David, that's Rewire, don't worry about it. And she looks over and immediately recognizes that it's Spellbinder, and just like, oh, well, I don't know, I'm Mrs. Shelby, don't know what you're talking about. So Rewire zaps her, knocks her out, and we cut back over to Tim, who has taken care of whatever's going on in the East Side Park, saved some people from a mugging, and Matt hops back over the comms and says, hey, Barbara's car exploded. We don't know where she is, and it looks like she was attacked with a massive amount of electricity. And Tim's like, oh, it's Rewire. All right, we need to figure out what's going on there. The power's back on all over the city, so this was all just their plan to get their hands on Barbara. That was always the goal. And it's like, okay, well, how do we find where to look? And Tim's like, we won't have to. They're using her to get to me, so they're going to, it's like a ransom note. They're just going to send it. And like immediately in the sky, there's the symbol of Red Robin is being used as like the bat signal. And it's down over on the island where Blackgate Prison is. So it's like, okay, well, that place is currently completely out of use. It was closed years ago, but it's also a complete death trap, which they are clearly leading me into. But I don't really have any other chance, so we're just going to go ahead and jump in. And they kind of posit some ideas of like, maybe he wants to steal the suit. Maybe that's why Rewire's doing it. And they're like, no, he's already more powerful than that. He wouldn't need to. Maybe there's some other stuff. Like, they just posit through things. But eventually, Tim gets kicked in the head. And turns out it's Barbara. And he's like, wait a minute, hold on. Why'd you attack me? And immediately come down to brainwashing. They don't know what did it, but Tim restrains Barbara and just like, Bruce has dealt with this before. We can bring it to the Batcave. It'll be fine. But then he gets zapped. Rewire's there saying like, all right, this is it. Our final encounter. You want me dead. You've been trying to kill me for so long. And Tim's like, I don't know who the hell you are, my guy. I really have no ill will here besides the fact that I can't let you, keep doing what you're doing. But like, you can not do that alive as well. And he's like, oh, you're lying. So Rewire takes control of the suit, but this time not in so much of like knocking it out as he explodes all the explosives that are on the utility belt. So he's out of the ability to do that. He causes the suit to crash down to the ground. He's completely offline. The whole thing is done. Matt's over the intercom saying like, oh, you're powerless. You can't do anything. And he's like, nuh-uh. I trained as a Robin. Like, I learned how to fight without all these fancy weapons. I can still do that. And he pulls up a pole from out of the ground and starts using it as a bow staff and knocks off Rewire's helmet again. And this time as it knocks off, Matt's able to see it through like the visuals as well. He's like, that's my brother. That's Tieri. What? And Tim's like, McGinnis, you're still alive. I watched you die right in front of me. And he's like, nope, I'm not McGinnis. I'm Davis Dusk. And isn't that right, Mrs. Shelby? And Mrs. Shelby walks in and is just like, oh, yes, that's right. He's Davis Dusk. And Matt, however, who's watching this through the camera, can clearly see, oh, that's Spellbinder. Like, that's Spellbinder. He'll make a puppet out of you too, Tim. You got to be careful. And Tim's just like, you don't look like an old lady. And he's like, Spellbinder's like, oh, all right, whatever. Fair enough. You see me, so be it. So we then get what I guess actually happened the night of Tieri disappearing. And we see that he was fighting against the Brother Eye stuff, and he also went down fighting against them. He was on death's door, but then Spellbinder showed up and took him in and I guess wiped his mind, wiped his memory, and has been using him as kind of a pawn of trying to take control ever since Brother Eye was defeated, being able to jump into that pit. But then Tim showed up and started ruining everything. Meanwhile, Matt has gone into a bat plane and is interfacing with the Alfred AI and basically saying, hey, will you let me fly this thing? And Alfred's like, you've got a 93% match to Mr. McGinnis, so yes, you're approved. And he's like, awesome, take me to Blackgate. Meanwhile, as Tim's trying to explain to Tieri, hey, you've been brainwashed and there's time travel stuff involved, Terry's like, that sounds stupid. You're gibbering like a madman, so I'm not going to listen to you. So they start fighting against each other as Matt's flying his way over at Matt's speed, and Terry's just basically like, this is it. I'm going to beat you. Like, you're going to destroy your suit and, well, no, I'm not going to destroy your suit. I'm going to take your suit and use it as the external power source that I need to permanently be able to live. Isn't that right, Mrs. Shelby? And Spellbinder's like, you got it. So yeah, that's the issue. He needs to strap down his helmet, man. I think that's number one. I think if you get your helmet kicked off twice in as many hours, you need to strap your helmet down tighter. No, it's fine. It's a fine enough issue. I do think it's a little bit weak in terms of the explanation as to why Tieri, quote, just dropped off the face of the earth. It'd be one thing if he did time travel, but this is a new timeline where I guess he didn't time travel, so therefore he's still here, and that's fine. But like, to say that Spellbinder just picked him up and nobody thought to follow that thread, I don't know. You can make the argument that it makes sense from like, oh, Brother Eye was still a thing and everyone was preoccupied, but I feel like there should have still been some traces, It's weird that nobody was able to pick that up. Other than that, I mean, it's a fine enough issue. Art's great. 11 out of 10. No problems there. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I like the issue itself, but I'm looking at it as the penultimate issue. The next issue is the final one. Do I feel like we've gotten to the point where like it feels like we're about to prep for the final battle? Kind of. We've had so many standoffs between Tieri and Tim up to this point, though. This doesn't feel any different, except to know that Spellbinder's behind it. So I think I'll still give it a 7. It's still good. I don't know. I want something a little bit flashier, a little bit something like, what makes this one more special? So yeah, 7. Batman Beyond number 16, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Stephen Thompson. So last issue, it's the final fight. It's the Rewire versus Batman, and Spellbinder's there, and so is Barbara. And it looks like we open up this issue with Tieri as Rewire. Has absolutely won. Like, Tim is being held up by the collar, and Terry's like, all right, that's it, I win. And he turns to Spellbinder like, you want him dead? And then throws Tim across the room and says, doesn't matter. I'm not going to kill him because he's not going to hurt anybody anymore. We're going to take his suit. He's not going to be a problem. And Mrs. Shelby, who's actually Spellbinder's, like, that ain't going to fly. He's a Batman. Batmans don't really just give up. We gotta actually kill him. He hates you. He wants you dead. You need to take care of this or he will keep hunting you forever. So I know it seems extreme, but like, do it. Kill him. And Tieri looks at his hands. He's like, no, that's wrong. I don't want to murder. Meanwhile, Matt's flying in on the bat plane, and he's like, hey, Alfred, are there guns for us to be able to shoot into the building? And the Alfred AI is like, yeah, we got some things we could do. And he's like, cool, prep those things up. Also, what the hell's a spellbinder? And we just get a little background. His name is Ira Billings. He has mind warping abilities. He's got a little floating eyeball, and that's the source of his projections of what he's able to do. And we see him using that eyeball to reassert his dominance over Tieri and says, do it. Kill Batman. Do it now. And Terry's like, I must listen. I will do it. But before he's able to do it, the wall explodes with the bat plane coming in. And Matt's like, okay, don't hit my brother. You can hit Spellbinder and all that, but don't hit my brother. And so Matt jumps out of the cockpit and he's like, Tieri, it's me. It's Matt. I'm your brother. And Terry's like, what the hell's a Matt? What are we talking about here? And Spellbinder's like, okay, all right, I need to be able to do this. Barbara, you're still under my mind control. That's a bat demon. That kid that came in, it's not a kid, it's a bat demon. Go kill the bat demon. And she's like, yes, Mrs. Shelby, I will kill the bat demon. So she goes over and tries to beat up Matt. Tieri gets a hold of him around the throat. He's like, oh, yeah, you're a bat demon. And he's like, oh, please, Tieri, stop, you're hurting me. And as Spellbinder is so focused on, yes, kill the kid, do it. He's a nuisance, get rid of him. Tim manages to sneak up behind Spellbinder, sucker punch him in the back of the head and said, enough, I'm done with this. This is stupid. And as he's laying hits on Spellbinder, the vision starts to shake across Barbara and Tieri. They're starting to like see a little bit more. Barbara does come over and be like, you're punching an innocent old lady. What are you doing? And he's like, Barbara, damn it, I don't have time for this. And he backhands Barbara, just like, this is stupid and I'm done with it. So he comes at Spellbinder, and Spellbinder uses a little eye. He's like, you're seeing the wrong thing, Tim. I'm not Spellbinder. I'm a little old lady. You can't hit me. And he's like, shut up. And he hits the eye, causing it to shatter into a million pieces. Tieri snaps out of it. He lets go of Matt's neck, and he's like, oh my God, you're not a bat demon. You're a kid. I'm sorry. I didn't even know. I'm so sorry. And Tim just picks up Spellbinder by the collar and is just like, I am so sick of being on the back foot in this future, not having any idea what's going on, all of this tying back to Brother Eye's stupid ass invasion. Nobody liked Future's End, god damn it. And so Tim, as he's taking care of Spellbinder, Tieri looks over like, why is Batman beating up a little old lady? And Matt's like, look again, Tieri, it's not a little old lady, it's Spellbinder. And he's like, oh, so it is. All right, fair enough. And he turns back to Matt and is like, you said your name is Matt. And he's like, yeah, Matt McGinnis, we're family. And he's like, Maddie. And he's like, yes, that's me. Oh my God, Tieri, you're back. So they have a nice big reunion. And Tim's just beating the ever-loving crap out of Spellbinder, just being like, Brother Eye is not here, but you are. And so I'm going to beat the crap out of you because you're trying to fill the void he left, and for that you were going to pay. And so he knocks Spellbinder on his ass. Finally, Barbara fully snaps out of it. And to be clear, look, nothing against Stephen Thompson. His artwork is actually very good in this. But Barbara looks like she's the exact same age as Tim, which Tim was aged down because of time travel stuff from what he should be in the Batman Beyond time period. Barbara should be like 60-something. She is not. She looks like mid-30s. Just pointing that out. It's weird. So yeah, everyone's good here. Everyone's fine. They look over at Tieri being like, Tieri, you like, are you good? Like, do you remember things? Like, my memories are still a bit jumbled, but like, yeah, I think I'm good. However, you're Tim Drake. Why do you look like you're 20-something? Why are you so young? And he's like, it's so confusing. We'll get into it back at the cave. So we go back to the cave and the full explanation's been given. And he's like, yeah, so your timeline, my timeline of Future's End died, and your timeline existed. And I guess in your timeline, you didn't actually do the time travel, and so you're still alive. So that's a thing. And they're just like, oh, okay, that's, I guess, makes sense. But Tim, that means that your timeline no longer exists. You have nothing to go back to. And he's like, yeah, no, that was established in issue 1. We're pretty much used to that. That's not really that big of a deal. I just wish that we had found you sooner. If we had known that you've been around literally this whole time. And he's like, oh, hey, don't worry about it. It's this whole thing. So at that point, Tim's basically like, okay, look, here's the deal. I'm just like, the fact that Future's End didn't happen, no matter how messed up this timeline is, it means we did something right. We managed to change the future for the better. Things are going to be better off now. However, this isn't my world. I don't understand what any of this is, and I don't even know how to get around Gotham. You guys have bridges between buildings that lead to nowhere. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I think I need to leave. And they're all like, wait, what? Hold on, we just established you now. You're the Batman. You got to do the thing. And he's like, look, we found Tieri. Tieri's Batman. Let's just be honest about that. He's going to take back over. He's the one who wants it. I kind of forced my way into the Bat family, and I never wanted the mantle. So by all means, I'm just going to hit the road. Everything's cool. And Matt's like, is it because I made fun of you? Is it because I pushed you away? I promise. I was just lashing out for my brother. He's like, we're cool, Matt. I promise you this is not about anybody. I've just got to find my own way, all right? And he shakes hands with Tieri and says like, hey, all right, you will come back if you ever need anything, any of that sort of stuff. He enjoys talking to Barbara, just like, hey, I've enjoyed meeting the new Commissioner Gordon. Everything's great. So he hops on a motorcycle and drives away, and Tieri looks at the bat suit and he's like, well, this feels kind of, and Matt's like, weird, and he's just like, no, good. I wanted this again. I'm glad I can finally get back to this. And he puts on the suit, and they're basically saying, like, not that Tim did any sort of bad job. He was perfectly good as Batman, but like, this is Terry's role, and Tieri is now back as Batman. He flies off the cliff of the manor, smiling. Only the beginning. However, epilogue page. Some point later, Tim is driving down the road. He's drinking out of the canteen. He's like, it's a beautiful day. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just enjoying life and taking it one day at a time. Huh, that's weird. There's a blinding flash of light in front of me as I'm driving my motor. And then he disappears. It's not blue. If it were blue, I'd say it's Dr. Manhattan. But it's like gold and yellow, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what happens to that version of Tim Drake. Do I think it's earned? I said that like 2 or 3 issues ago. Do I think that Tieri getting his memories back in the way that he did was earned? Yeah, more yes than no. I think it is done well enough. You get Matt being the one that acts as like the focal point to bring him back over. They do make it a thing where all of this was done because of Spellbinder. Maybe he never had any form of amnesia. This was just a long-term like spell put on him. I feel like I appreciate it more than I don't. It's weird to have the Stephen Thompson art just on this last issue. Again, not bad. It's done very well, but I was so used to the Bernard Chang that it was weird that this came up. Yeah, no, and then obviously book had to end with Tieri back in it. As long as they're bringing Tieri back, Tieri had to be the one back in the role. We go to Rebirth, Batman Beyond, he's the one who's sticking around in there, and we get more character development there. All of that's fine. I appreciate it. It needed to happen. The Tim disappearing stuff is strange. I don't know what that comes out of or what that leads into. I'm assuming that it's done in the same sort of vein of early on in Rebirth. Young Tim Drake also disappears. Due to machinations of Rebirth, so maybe that was to do with that, and it just never quite panned out. But I don't know. It's a strange epilogue, but beyond that, it's a fine issue. So I'm going to say that, much like the rest of the series, this is sitting at a pretty solid 7. I like it. It's good. It's a solid book, but it's just never getting into that great territory. But it's also not bad either. It's just a decent read for people who maybe want to get into Batman Beyond, and the people who are already into Batman Beyond, it's a good lead into the things that they want to see to get it into the main universe. So yeah, 7 for probably the whole series, but especially for this issue. Bloodlines, number 3, written by J.T. Krul, art by V. Kenneth Marion. So last issue, we got some random guy showing up. He looked like a zombie hunter, and he showed up to a multiple homicide that was at a birthday party saying like, oh, I can help you with this stuff. This issue picks up with just 2 pages of his backstory. We see that he was at home when all of a sudden his wife and child transformed into these horrific looking beasts, and he's like, oh, do you think you could do the same to stop their suffering. If you couldn't save your family, could you do the unthinkable? And we see he fires off 2 shots and then goes out and sits on the porch as his family is dead behind him. We then cut to now. We see Blake is there, or sorry, he says his name is Duncan, but I swear a later part of this she said Blake. Maybe it's Duncan Blake. I don't know. Regardless, he's basically saying like, look, I can help, but like, do you have anything to do with anything going on? Because like you just walk into here holding a gun. He's just like, no, you got to be listening to me. And he takes a look at Blake and sees his neck. He sees a bruise on it. And he's like, you've got the same mark. You're one of them. And he jumps on, starts attacking, doing whatever. The other cop is like, hey, what's going on, man? When all of a sudden this big energy force field thing starts coming up and Blake's like, oh no, here we go again. It causes the gunman to jump back. He lands on his back away from them, and then he starts taking pot shots at Blake. Blake melts the bullets as they approach just by putting up his hand. He's like, wait a minute, hold on. I didn't even touch him. What the hell's going on? And then the gunman runs off, jumps over the picket fence, and as the cops try to chase him, he gets away. And she's like, all right, well, put an APB out for that. Who the hell was that guy, Blake? What do you want with you? And as the other cop looks back around, Blake is already gone. We then come back to school, where Eddie is talking to Albert. If you remember, Albert has invisibility powers. Eddie, of course, turns big and blue. And Albert's like, hey, I've been in the girls' locker room all day. I've just been chilling out in there. And Eddie's like, that's not okay, man. You need to not do that. And Albert's like, okay, but like I was listening to them and they were saying that Dana posted this weird ass video on her vlog last night. And they pull up the video and it shows her for just a split second turning into like pure electricity before all of a sudden the computer shuts off and being like, hey, look, between what happened to us here, it seems likely something happened to Dana as well. We need to go talk to her. So we cut over to them talking to Dana. Dana's like, it was just a glitch with my camera. I don't know. The whole thing just, my computer blew up. It's nothing. And Eddie's like, Dana, if that's the case, if you're actually fine, so be it. Cool. I hope you are. But something did happen to me. Something did happen to Albert. I'm not taking it very well. And I just want you to know that we're looking for answers. And Dana just pauses and she's like, yeah, I'm terrified too. I don't know what's happening there. And Albert's like, you guys are so emo about this. Like, I get to chill out in the girls' locker room all day. So we go to some random convenience store. Some girl buys a soda, passes over the card, when all of a sudden the clerk there starts transforming. I don't know the best. It's a horrific transformation. It's not something that looks good. These weird tendrils started emerging out of his arms. He starts wrapping up the woman, and then all of a sudden the gunman comes back in, shoots the guy in the face and says, all right, you're safe now, bye. And he just walks out again. The woman is like, Jesus Christ. So cops are called. We see the same cop is there just being like, oh, hey, where's Blake? Did he call off for the night again? Being like, I guess. I don't know. I thought I knew what was going on with him, but I really don't know anymore. And we then cut over to Blake, who has gone over to Haley's house, his ex. He's just banging on the door saying like, hey, you gotta let me in. What's going on? Haley's pissed off saying like, hey, I told you and your partner, like, don't come around here anymore. And he's like, what? My partner showed up? Sorry, I didn't even know about that. But as he comes in, he like tries to get a hand on Haley. He's like, don't touch me. And he's like, that's probably for the best because I don't know what the hell's going on and I don't want to hurt you. And she's like, what do you mean? And we see him use his powers consciously. He describes it as being able to turn anything he touches into pure energy. And he's like, is this the craziest thing you've ever seen? She's like, well, it would have been yesterday. And then all of a sudden she sprouts her powers, which is blades coming out of her bodies, all these different places. And she's like, Jesus Christ, Haley, what's going on? And they're like, I have no idea. But they comfort each other. They say like, oh, are you okay? Is everything good? And as he gives her a hug, she's like, careful, I might skewer you. And he's like, I'll take my chances. So we see that Albert's dad apparently works at a hospital. He steals his dad's badge so that they can get access to a CT scanner. And Albert's like, all right, well, we got to see what's up with one of us. Dana, why don't you hop up on there? And she's like, oh, yeah, you'd like that, you little pervert, wouldn't you? And he's like, fair enough. All right, Eddie, you got to hop in. So Eddie hops on the CT scanner. And when he gets in there, they make just a little dig at Albert, keeps on calling him big guy. And Dana's like, why do you keep calling him big guy? That seems insensitive given his condition and all that. And Albert's like, you have no idea, man. So they look at the CT scanner and they start freaking out because they see all over his body are embedded these little parasites, these little creatures throughout there. Eddie starts freaking out. He's like, what? No, Jesus, get me out of here. I feel trapped, whatever like that. And he starts panicking. He starts growing again inside of the CT scanner. And as he does so, he has a vision from the perspective of the little parasite creature in space crashing down to Earth in a meteor. We see Dana's able to use her electricity ability somehow to help Eddie get out of the CT scanner. And it's just like, oh, hey, look at you. And it's like, yeah, look at you too. You're blue. And that's where Albert comes up and says, like, okay, Eddie, are you cool right now? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I saw some images or something. And he's like, yeah, they're embedded all over your body, including your brainstem. That's affecting your vision. You probably saw what they saw. But that's also bad news, because these parasites are doing something with our body, but they're not going to stop there. They're also going to take over our minds as well. And we get one last page showing a local morgue where there's a bunch of dead bodies, including the dude who was at the convenience store, the clerk there, and all of a sudden his drawer clicks open. There's some scorching sounds, and then we see a blob of limbs just leaving the morgue, and all of the other drawers have been open. So, oh no, some sort of threat that we're going to have these unlikely heroes come together and fight against. Who could have seen this coming? No, it's fine. It's a perfectly good issue. I think the best thing about this story, the best thing is that, like, I haven't read the previous issue of this in a month, but the characterization, the lengths that they went through to tell us who Albert is, who Haley is, who Blake and Eddie and all them, and what their deal is, it's stuck. I think that that's one of the greatest strengths to this, is you can introduce an entirely new cast of characters, and I don't feel like I'm needed reminders of it each and every issue. I'm remembering who each of them are as we go. So kudos to that. Really talented writing there. So overall, this one is probably like 7.5 material. I think it's solid. It is definitely still just building up. We're not quite at like the peak of it yet, but for a 6-issue mini, it's a good halfway point. So yeah, 7.5. Bloodlines number 4, written by J.T. Krul, art by V. Kenneth Marion. So last issue, we ended up with a hulking mass of dead human flesh exiting a morgue with a to be continued. This issue, however, picks up with the little girl who has a weird psychic beast thing that's on her side. They don't say her name here, and I can't remember it, but she's eating a bunch of junk food in front of a TV, just enjoying her best life, when she's like, oh, you know, I was thinking ice cream, but now I'm thinking pizza. What do you think, girl? And she turns back to the giant psychic beast that is sitting between her and who I assume are her parents, who are dead, and they have holes in their chests and there's blood everywhere. So she's messed up. We then go to Blake and Haley, who are asleep in bed. Blake is just looking at her being like, oh geez, all this stuff is happening. And then he hears a dog barking outside. As he looks out the window, he sees Duncan. Last issue was unsure if Duncan was his name or Blake's like last name or something like that, but it turns out it's this guy's name. Duncan starts taking shots. He is like, oh, I finally found you. Busts in through somehow a second-story window and just kicks it in. Haley is like, who the hell is this guy? I'd be like, long story, but he's got something on us. And they flip up the mattress to take the shots. And then he's like, oh, the mattress isn't going to hold for long. And that's where Blake uses his powers to turn it into a little bit of like a bomb. So he does the same thing with a lamp, takes Duncan down, and that's where Haley's like, all right, screw this guy, I'm going to get in the fight. So she gets her blades out, deflects some bullets with it, and then goes to attack Duncan. And Blake's like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to kill people. And she's like, why not? He was going to do the same to us. And it's like, right, but we shouldn't do that because I don't think he's as psychotic as he seems. And he turns to Duncan and is like, look, you've seen what's happening to us happen before, right? And he's like, yeah, it ends very badly. I saw my family get infected, and they started off like you, with just like some weird little quirks, and then they got turned into puppets for some monsters or something like that. And Blake's like, okay, I'm sorry about your family, but we're not monsters. And he's like, not yet, you aren't. We then cut over to Eddie, Dana, and Albert. After they found out about the parasites inside of them all, they're in the school library, And Albert's just looking up some stuff online, just being like, well, there's no research about any parasites or anything like that. It's not microscopic, it's macroscopic, so that removes a lot of stuff. It's not a tapeworm, anything like that. And then as they're talking, some cheerleaders come up that are friends of Dana's and basically saying, oh, hey, look at you hanging out with the nerds. And Dana's like, shut up, go away, we don't want to do this. And she's like, hey, whatever, good for you. It's going to look good on a college application. By the way, just remember the big games tonight. We need you there for cheerleading. And we fast forward to that night, and of course she didn't go. And Eddie calls her out like, oh, you're not going to the game? And she's like, nah, I'm not feeling very school-spirited, you know? And Albert calls them out for being so negative about this, about being so pessimistic. And it's like, hey, we have these special gifts now, and like beforehand, every aspect of my life was so deeply controlled by my parents. Like, in order to succeed, I had to do piano practice, I had to do extra work, I had to do extracurriculars and all this sort of stuff. I never had a moment to myself to just chill. But now that I can turn invisible, if I don't want my parents to find me, they're not going to find me. These powers are incredible gifts. And they're just like, well, we don't exactly feel the same. We feel that it's dangerous, but we're glad that you're having a gay old time with it. And then all of a sudden they hear screaming from out on the football field, because they are hanging out still at the school. And Eddie immediately starts running in. Albert's like, well, dude, what do you think you're going to do? And he's like, I did not use my powers well enough to save my friend Graham. I'm not going to let that happen again. With great power comes something or another. So he turns blue. He runs in. Dana and Albert give chase. And out on the field, we see that giant hulking mass of flesh that was previously a convenience store clerk. And he's picked up some football players. He's tossing them around, absorbing them into his flesh. And immediately Eddie's like, oh, get everyone out of here. I'll take this guy on. And he gets blasted back. Albert acts as a distraction, calling the guy names. It looks like he gets stomped on, but of course he can turn invisible and intangible. And also somehow Blake, Haley, and Duncan are here. They just show up. Blake is supercharging footballs with energy and throwing them at the beast. I'm just going to call him that. As Duncan's firing off shots. We see Eddie goes and pulls the field goal post out of the ground, treats it like a baseball bat and swings at him. However, the beast is too big, too strong. It just bends the poles and then starts absorbing Eddie inside of him. We get a few panels of black until Haley ends up cutting through the flesh, allowing Eddie to get through. And just like, all right, so what are we supposed to do here? And that's where Dana comes in from off field and says, you guys should get out of the way. I don't entirely have this under control yet. And she uses her electricity powers, lifts up off the ground. And as she starts attacking him with her powers, she just mutters to herself, we're not like you. We're not like you. So yeah, she fries the guy. He goes down. And Duncan steps up being like, okay, but we need to take care of the root problem here. Like, this is not something that we can treat like a normal death. So he carves the inside of the guy's chest open. He tells Eddie to come over and give him a hand. Eddie reaches in and pulls out the man's spinal column, and attached to the base of it is this red fleshy sack, to which Duncan cuts it in half with his machete, and that's the official way to kill them. So this one's officially dead. And he's like, all right, that's it for this one. What about the rest of you? And I was like, what about us? And Blake says, look, we've all got this stuff inside of us, and it's going to be taking us over slowly. Duncan says, yeah, slowly but surely. So you've got that to look forward to. And then we cut to a preacher at a congregation of church who's basically saying, look, these are some tough times we're going through, but it's important to know that God has not forsaken us. This is not punishment for our sins. This is existing just as a test. The darkness will allow us to appreciate the light all the more when it comes through on the other side. And the only thing that you need to be able to get to that light through this darkness is faith. Faith in me. Your deacon. And we see his eyes glow. He's got the mark as well. And all of his congregation are enthralled. They mind control. That's what we're doing. A mind controlling preacher. Yeah, it's fine. It's a solid issue. I like, we basically have the entire team together. Everyone's done this. Duncan is acting as some backstory. But I don't know. It's weird to me that we're not building up to this girl more. The idea that she has this psychic monster that and is like just murdering literally everybody. It feels to me like that would be a thing of they do a bunch of investigating to say like what happened, how did this thing has been going on around town, it must be someone who has powers, but like who could it be? And then when they finally find out that it's this young girl, it's this whole like, oh, what are we supposed to do? So far we've been through Duncan being a threat, we've been through the weird beast mass thing being a threat, and now we've got this preacher as well. It feels like the girl is not the focus. To be fair, it makes sense for like if they were to have adapted this onto like the CW Arrowverse, it would have fit perfectly. It's an episodic monster of the week sort of thing, no problem, absolutely fits. But there's a reason that style has gone out of style. So 7. Yeah, it's got enough going for it. I like the characters more than anything else. The plot itself is okay. It's just fine. But the characters are what's really making me stick around here, and I'm appreciating their inner dynamics. So we'll see if we can stick it with whatever comes in the next 2 issues. Bloodlines number 5, written by J.T. Krul, art by the Kenneth Marion. So last issue, after the big fight out on the football field, we saw that there was a priest who was controlling people, and that's where we left all that out on. But we follow our main crew as they are at Haley's garage, which is also Stu's garage, and he's basically saying, look, this isn't how this is going to work out, okay? This is going to be a problem. And Duncan is the one who's saying all this. He's looking around at the rest of the group with like crazy eyes, and it's like, look, I'm keeping out an eye on you guys changing, because it's going to happen. And they're like, we're already changing. Like, we've got powers. Isn't that enough? And he's like, no, it gets worse. And we have a flashback to his wife and kid. And so, yeah, the kid had a fever. And soon afterwards, the wife named Claire also got one as well. And I need to call this out. It's the tiniest little thing. Because I'm reading this like back to back. Issue 3, his wife was very clearly African-American, black like him. In this, she's blonde and very white. And I don't understand how that happened. The kid looks the same, but the wife looks very different. But regardless, they didn't want to go to the hospital. They thought it was just an illness. And then he said it was like watching their soul drain out from their eyes. They just flickered away as something else took over. So he pulls out his gun and he's like, look, I can't just wait for that same thing to happen to all of you. You'll hurt other people. I can't have that happen. It's better this way. And Blake's like, this is like the 3rd time you tried to kill me. Please stop. And he pulls out the thing, and Haley says, look, we're not monsters, not yet. We're still victims. And Eddie steps up and says, you know what? Maybe it is better this way. Like, you've seen what I turn into. I'm this hulking brute, a giant blue thing. I wouldn't want that on my conscience if I ended up hurting people. So, yeah, go ahead, do it. I don't want to see that happen. He steps in front of the gun, and everyone else is like, oh my God, this is what? And Duncan's like, all right, you're not monsters yet. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe this will be different, but I'm keeping my eye, and that's what's going to happen. Dana's like, Eddie, that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen, but like, no, it's just stupid. I was going to say you're brave, but no, it's just stupid. And she's like, thanks. Blake steps up to Duncan being like, for real though, could you please stop trying to kill us? Like, this is a little bit much here. And he's like, okay, fine, but you understand why. And he's like, yes, I get it. Considering what you've seen and everything else, I can't speak for everyone here, but I think for the most part, we're in agreement that nobody wants to hurt anybody else. So do what you got to do if it happens. So they all go out on the street, and Dana and Eddie flirt a little bit. We see Albert's asking Blake, like, hey, you're a cop. If I were invisibly to, I don't know, trespass, would that still count as a crime? And he's like, yes, of course it would. Why are you asking? It goes for all the things that you've done horrible already. And Albert's like, good to know. And as they turn the corner, they see this huge crowd of people, and all of them are just lumbering around like zombies. And they're like, what the hell's going on? They're not responding. What's happening? Haley goes up to Stu, the owner of the garage, and she's like, Stu, you gotta snap out of it. It's me, it's Haley. And he just backhands her upside the face. And we see in the back of the crowd, or in the middle, leading all this is the priest, is this guy. And he's controlling them all, saying like, look at these ones. They should have been touched by my greatness, but they are resisting their destiny. Please go and help them out. Get them to do it. And we see the mob start swarming our group. Immediately, everyone starts pulling out their powers, except Blake tells Haley, hey, these are still our neighbors and whatnot. Everyone else is able to do like slightly nonviolent things. You've got blades. Could you not cut them? And she's like, yeah, I could just punch them. No problem. We see that the priest gets snuck up on by Albert, who, of course, invisibility. He just punches him in the face, and he's like, oh, well, you don't got special vision to see past me. However, the priest doesn't only have mind control abilities, he also has telekinetic powers. He busts open a fire hydrant, which reveals Albert's location, and he's like, all right, well, you're full of surprises. So Eddie runs in to try to stop the priest from attacking Albert. The priest causes 2 cars to explode, which causes the whole team to like redirect their focus. They're like, look, if we take him out, then everyone else will be saved. So let's go after him. However, the priest pulls out yet another power, I guess kind of relating to both telepathic and telekinetic, where he unleashes this big energy wave of psionic energy. It causes everyone to get blasted back into buildings, and Eddie's trapped under the rubble for some time. When he gets up, he hops out, and he's like, hey, where's everybody? The whole crowd has disappeared. And it's like, we don't know. They all just vanished. We have no idea where they could have went to, and that guy probably took them and is going to kill them all. And he's like, oh, Eddie's like, oh, okay, hold on. I think I have an idea as to where they might be drawn to. So we see they're climbing up the hill, and Duncan's like, are you sure this is this way, kid? And he's like, yeah, I can't explain it. To which Albert then helpfully jumps in, being like, oh, well, the parasite is connected with your brain, and it's been sending and stimulating your neurons as we approach its crash site or whatever. And Eddie's like, thank you, Albert. When I said I can't explain it, I meant I didn't want to explain it. And also Dana's feeling like some stomach pain, something like that, to which Albert's like, oh, it's unlikely it would take advantage of your digestive tract if that's an automatic process. And it's like, Albert, for the love of God, shut up. No one wants to hear the scientific talk. So they make their way to the crash site of this meteor. It's this huge thing, and the meteor is like floating a little bit off the ground. It's still just hovering in midair. So they all look down at it, and they're like, all of us have this gut reaction of we don't want to go in there. It's not a good thing. But Duncan lights a flare and says, we don't have much of a choice, and they all make their way down. Now, at the bottom of the crater, there is a tunnel that they start making their way down into. And as they're going down, Blake is talking to Duncan, being like, hey, Duncan, you might want to hang back a little bit, because, like, we're all screwed. We know that, like, you know, we're dead man walking, but you can still have a life outside of this. You're not infected. To which Duncan says, no, I died the day my family died. My brain just hasn't gotten the message yet. So the flare starts to go out. Dana uses her electricity powers to light up the cave. And in doing so, it's slightly brighter. And in the slightly brighter, they come to this massive cavern that is a Cronenbergian hellscape. It's this giant, fleshy, horrific-looking tentacle monster that's attached to the ceiling of the cave, and all the followers are starting to get bound up into it via tentacles and fleshy goop. So at that point, they start attacking our gang. Our gang starts fighting back. Eddie rushes in like, look, the ones who have already started turning, it's too late for them, but we can save the other ones before they get infected. Haley is in the middle of a knife fight when she calls out to Blake for help. Blake fires off a shot in her direction, which almost hits her, but hits someone else instead. And she's like, okay, thanks for the assist, but, like, watch where you're firing that thing. To which we then see Blake has been overtaken by whatever sort of parasite. His eyes are white, and he's facing down against Haley, who's like, oh no, that's not good. That's the issue. I mean, I said this last issue, I thought for sure the big thing that we were going to be going for is the little girl with the psychic energy monster or something. Maybe she'll pop up as, like, the Deus Ex, the thing that comes in and saves the day, but, like, she's a psychopath. She's a sociopath. She's murdering everyone. Why would she not be the big threat? It almost feels like this was set up to be bigger than it was, or at least we were hoping we could get more issues out of it, but, you know, it's a 6-issue mini. It just didn't get there. So, yeah, I appreciate it, but the fact that we didn't get this threat of the priest until the end of issue 4 just makes it feel like, oh, is this really the big thing? Is this the big bad? It felt like it was coming in too late to the story. And yeah, the fact that, I mean, he's leading them for some reason. He's a bit more taken over by the parasite. Maybe that's what we're getting at here. I don't know. I'm thinking this is probably more of like a 6.5 sort of range to me. It's not bad, but I hesitate to say 7. I'll give it the 7. I think it's just barely squeaking by because I do really like the art when it comes down to the cave. But I will call out the change of race for the wife was weird, and when Dana uses her electricity power on the cover in every previous issue, it's blue. In this issue, for some reason, it's purple. It just felt like the colorist maybe missed a memo or something, or didn't look back at previous issues, which I checked. It's been the same colorist the whole time. I don't know what happened. It's just a weirdness. So yeah, screw it. I'm going back down to 6.5. It's got issues. It's got some problems. I think that they're not as bad enough to make the issue unreadable, but it is a problem. Bloodlines number 6, written by J.T. Krul, art by V. Kenneth Marion. So last issue, we left off with the cliffhanger of a giant alien parasite beast thing is down inside a cave, and Blake may have been taken over by it. So we get a flashback to, I guess, like 12 hours ago, where Blake and Haley are hooking up after they get their powers, and he's like, oh, I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm glad we could do this. And she's like, I haven't been thinking of you at all. He's like, okay, thanks for that. But he's, they basically just have a little bit of a flirty moment saying how, they both wanted this tonight, and that's all that they can hope for. And then we cut to now, where Haley is forced to fight against Blake, who's been completely taken over by the parasite. She gets knocked down by his energy blast, and he picks up a giant rock, starts loading it up with energy, is about to crush it down on her, and in comes Eddie to tackle him down to the ground, which causes a little bit of a cave-in, just a couple of rocks to land on him. When Eddie gets back up, they look up, and Haley's like, oh my god, is he dead? And she's like, no, he's just knocked out, but maybe that would be for the better if he was dead, because, he just reached his point of no return. He's taken over by the parasite. And Haley's like, oh, that bastard. And so like, it's not his fault. And she's like, no, not him, that. And she points over to the giant beast thing that's been controlling everyone, the mother parasite, they call it. And she's like, well, we're going to have to take that out. It's going to pay for doing this to Blake. And they try to start fighting it, but they get caught up by all the regular people who are still being controlled by the priest. And so he's yelling out just like, oh, my children, you all jump in, take them out. They are denying the inevitable. And then all of a sudden he starts freaking out. He starts being unable to say anything else. He struggles for breath, and they're like, wait, hold on, what's happening to him? We didn't do anything. He's maybe the alien's taking over, it's destroying the host. And as he falls down to the ground, all of a sudden Albert turns visible, and he's got his hands around the priest's throat and is like, I did it. I just killed this guy. That's exactly what and everyone, obviously Albert's having a little bit of a tough time with it, but everyone's like, great job, man, you did it, now we've got a chance. So the normal humans are knocked out, they're not a threat, but we do have a bunch of infected left over, and they continue to charge at our gang. So immediately we see Eddie's just crushing heads, punching through stomachs, doing whatever. They're no longer human. He doesn't have to hold back. But he does have this sense inside of him of something is holding me back. I'm doing this, but something in me is telling me I shouldn't. Is it the human part of me recognizing that these were once people? Or is it the parasite in me saying these are other fellow parasites, don't kill them? And he can't tell the difference. Dana swoops in as Mother Parasite, drops down a whole bunch of extra smaller parasites, I guess to get all of the uninfected that are unconscious on the ground, and Dana just uses her electricity powers to zap them all straight out of the air, so they're no longer a threat, but that triggers the Mother Parasite into its final attack, so it starts lunging out with these crazy-ass tentacles everywhere, attacking each of our heroes. Everyone starts fighting back as best they can. Albert, however, does not have the ability to do so. So when Eddie gets free for just a second, he rips Albert away from the tentacles, tosses him across the room and says, you need to get out of here. And Albert's like, but I thought we were a team. It's like, yes, we are a team. You've done your part. This requires some brute force. Same goes for everyone else. Bullets, blades, none of that's helping. We just need sheer unadulterated muscle right now. So everyone starts bailing out. Dana does continue to do some electric shock stuff, but basically it's hurting Eddie at the same time that it's hurting the mother. And it's just like, all right, you need to go too. I'm the one that's going to finish this. It's monster v monster. So we get a 2-page splash showing just a bunch of different aspects of the fight scene. And he's basically saying, that feeling inside of me of I shouldn't be doing this has only gotten stronger. It must be the parasite. It's the parasite in me saying, no, stop. This is one of our own. This is our mother. But he's fighting against the instincts. He's pushing through regardless. And eventually we see, he manages to bust through the top of its skull and ends up killing it. So At that point, it's out, it's over, and all that's left is some point somewhere in there they've tied up Blake, who is still under full control, and Duncan steps up and says, hey, we covered this last issue, we said what we need to do, but Albert's like, hold on, what if there's another way? Like, what if we keep him tied up, we keep him restrained or whatever, until we can figure out for certain if there's a cure, because like maybe we can revert him back. And Duncan's like, there's no cure. To which Albert goes, how do you know that? And he says, because I killed my whole damn family and I can't accept the fact that there might be a cure. But as they're arguing, as they're getting more into it, Haley steps up, blades ready, stabs Blake in the chest and says, Duncan is right, this isn't Blake. And she rips out the parasite from inside his spinal column, stabs it through, and she says, you were right, Blake, I never would hurt you. So everyone crawls up out of the hole. Dana just kind of breaks mentally for a second. Eddie comes up to talk to her, and she's like, a few days ago I was just thinking about my future, colleges and stuff like that, and now this, there's a parasite that's going, like, am I going to die? Is that what that is it just like, am I going to be conscious of everything that's happening? I don't, and it might happen tomorrow, or I might die. Like, what's going to happen to us? And Eddie's like, I don't know, but I promise you that I will be by your side for as long as I can. That's all I can do right now. So the next morning, what's left of the gang goes back to Stu's garage. They still have Blake's car, and Haley's saying, we can take this out on the road. It's got good horsepower to do for transportation. Albert doesn't know it's Blake's car, just being like, isn't someone going to be pissed that we're taking their car? And Haley's like, well, I think he would be if I didn't just stab him through the chest. And they're like, okay, Albert, maybe shut up a little bit. However, it's only got like 4 seats. It isn't like, able to hold all of them, to which Haley's like, oh, you guys can have the car. I got my own ride. So we see she's on a motorcycle driving alongside them. The narration's basically saying, yeah, we don't know what we're doing yet. We don't know how long we have. We're basically just passing the time, hanging out with Duncan so that Duncan can do what's necessary. Eddie kind of hopes he's the first one to turn, so that way he doesn't have to see all of his newfound friends being killed before his eyes or losing their stuff. Albert, however, is in the passenger seat. And he's like, okay, I don't know for sure if there's a cure, but we at least have an option. We have places we can go. It seems like our best chance is we go to Metropolis. So we see they're on the open highway, and it's like, well, all right, let's see if somebody can fix all this. And they make their way out of town. We then cut to a little bar, a little saloon. That is a news report of all the hundreds of deaths that happened in this town and how it's a complete mystery of what happened here. And this one guy's like, shut that crap off. I don't care about some small town murders or whatever. When the bartender turns off the TV, a voice from the back says, hey, keep it on. I was watching that. To which point we zoom out and we see it's the little girl whose name has not been mentioned since issue 2. So I don't know what it is. But she's basically like, hey, I was watching that. And they're like, hey, you said your parents were just outside parking the car. That was 20 minutes ago. What's going on? Who are you? And she's like, I said, leave on the TV. And they're like, you got a mouth on you for a little girl. This ain't your playhouse. Maybe run along. And she's like, oh, but this is my playhouse. It's all mine. And her eyes glow. She gives off the massive psychic beast energy. It roars at them. And then we just end on screaming from this bar. What will happen to our bloodline people? What will happen to the little girl? I don't think we'll ever find out. I assume they're all dead. It's fine. It's a fine miniseries. I looking back on it, like beginning to end, I think I just went in with my own assumptions as to what the series should be. And I stand by that. I think it might have been a more concrete, just standing on its own thing of like wrapping up threads if it was the things I was hoping it would be. But that's going in with the knowledge that this was a 6-issue mini that was not going to be extended upon literally anywhere else. This goes in with the idea of the end, but never the end. The idea that we may see them in some other book, in some other place, leaving that door open. And it's only from my perspective, knowing that that door was never walked through, that makes this ending a little bit disappointing. But if I'm viewing it through the lens of, you don't know that. You don't know how this book is going to be received as you're writing it, as you're drawing it, as you're releasing it, then it's fine. It's a fine enough series. It's just leaving some cliffhangers that they can touch on later if they want. So I guess with all that in mind, I don't feel like it's above a 7, but I also don't feel like it's that far below either. So I guess I'll just say 7. It's a good book. It's a fine enough book. The character work is really the top-notch thing here. I think it does a great job of that, but the plot itself is just average. It's what it is. It's just introducing some threats. It's getting these characters to where they need to be, and then they win the fight. It's not doing anything outlandishly twisty. It's not doing anything weird. It's just what it is. So, yeah. 7. Bloodlines was a perfectly okay series. Harley Quinn number 29, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Chad Hardin. So, last issue, there was a mobster that was the father of one of the victims of Harley. And I say victim as in she accidentally killed the guy. He was declaring vengeance. And that's where we left off. This issue opens with a giant robot monster. It's a giant Harley, it's a robot, and it's just in the middle of town. And it's complete non sequitur. Like, we'll get there, but like, it's not how it opens. So the actual opening is a man is walking through a car factory, the Henshin automobile factory. And apparently there's this T-class automobile that's being sold out to these things. And it's like, oh, we've made 36 of this car and we've deployed them. The last section is in section GOJ 1954, which is just a Godzilla reference. That's all it is. And we see this guy's like, well, I personally paid for those last 4. Those belong to me. I'd like to see what I was paying for there. And so he's led into the back room. And the woman who's walking him around is like, well, the red one is the control vehicle, but you know that. And he's like, ma'am, look, I know what these cars are. I know what they're capable of. What I need to hear from you is that my wife has been unfaithful to me. She has been cheating with every single other man in management of this company. And I know everyone knows about it and they think they're keeping me safe, but I need you just tell me it's happening. And she's like, yeah, it's an open secret. Everyone knows. And she's like, thank you. I'm happy to hear it. Now get out of here because you're not going to like what happens next. Drive away as fast as possible. And we see that the secret of these cars is that they can transform into giant robots. So his starts to transform and there's 4 other ones there. Maybe they all come together into one. It's not very clear, but it transforms into this giant robot. And we see that he activates the microphone on there so that he's able to talk via the robot speakers. Cut to his wife, who is currently banging someone in management, when all of a sudden the dude's torso just explodes. And we see a giant hole in the wall, and it's the husband saying, oh, you've shown utter contempt for me in front of the entire organization. This is all your fault. And he blows her up as well. And spends like extra missiles to just destroy the whole building. And then he's like, well, despite all that, I still loved you, wife, so I hope that I will see you in the next life. And he holds a giant robot gun up to his giant robot head, blows it away, and he is seemingly killed as well. Cut to Harley is in Coney Island, and Tony is taking apart a bunch of snow globes, one of which is Titanic themed. You can see she shakes it up, and then there's just a bunch of dead bodies, and the Heart of the Sea necklace starts bumping up as well. And it turns out that she just wants to embed one of these into the stomach of her stuffed beaver. And she does so. And she's like, oh, yeah, all I got to do is shake it. And Tony's like, yeah. And if you ever want to swap it out, I left some other ones in your top drawer. So you can go ahead and just whip it out and shove it in here. And they both look at Bernie and they don't make the obvious joke. So Harley then goes to meet up with Poison Ivy. Apparently they're like deep in the red or something like that because of having to cover the wax museum. So Harley's a little bit stressed. She wants to Poison Ivy to stay the night, just be able to give her some extra attention. She's like, I'm sorry, I've got some seminars and all this extra stuff to go to. But Harley promises that once everything clears up, they're going to go to the Bahamas and get like a spa massage and all that sort of stuff. Cut back to Tony and them later on that night. He gets a call for Harley that they're going to get 20 grand if they can help restore some lost cars, some stolen cars. And turns out they're all being kept in this lot. So they're going to wait it out in a truck until the shift change for security, and then they're going to go in there and steal it. Turns out they accidentally slept through the whole night, and so when the morning comes, they're like, screw it, we're just going to do it in broad daylight. So they take the truck, they bash it through the gate, and immediately Harley rounds up all the security guards and says, cool, what was the problem there? No problem. I need to point out this panel of as she rounds up the security guards, for some reason there's a chimpanzee in the background. It never comes up again. There's just a chimp here. So the cars are brought back to this guy named O'Bannon, and he's the one who runs a bunch of bowling alleys or something like that. And he's like, oh, thank you for bringing me back my cars. That's fantastic. And he offers up to 20 grand, but Harley says, now hold on. I think I want to change this deal. He's like, you trying to shake me down? She's like, yes, I am. I want 20 grand plus 10 free games of bowling. And he's like, yeah, okay, not a problem. I'll throw in shoe rentals. Thanks. So we cut over to the bowling alley. They're getting set up when all of a sudden the roof comes off the bowling alley, and it's a giant robot again, this time piloted by O'Bannon, who says, I'm getting my 20 grand back. And we see that he picks up Harley and like shakes her around a little bit, asking for the money back. Tony is like, oh, okay, here you go. Here's your 20 grand. Throws it up to him. Harley gets cast aside and lands next to O'Bannon's assistant, who is also in like deathly injury, and says, hey, O'Bannon was hired by that mobster guy, Dominic Capablo, because you killed his son. And she's like, that was an accident. I didn't even like, I don't understand why this is even a thing here. O'Bannon hops on the phone with O'Pablo and says, hey, I'm not really a murderer. Is it okay if I just bring her over to you and then you can kill her? And he's like, no, damn it, you're too in deep with me. You got to kill her yourself. That's the whole thing. So O'Bannon's assistant pointed Harley out to one of the other cars. She hops into it, and it transforms into a giant robot Harley, and they just start a giant robot fight. Harley doesn't know any of the controls, so she's kind of just winging it, pressing random buttons. She ends up firing a few missiles, but they just miss. They go around O'Bannon. She then picks up a subway train, she saves it from falling, realizes it's empty, and says, oh, cool, and starts using it as nunchucks. So she attacks O'Bannon. O'Bannon then hits the big red button, which pulls out a nuke straight out of, I think it's Beneath the City of the Planet of the Apes or something like that. I don't know. So at that point, he's ready to start firing that off, and Harley says, well, I guess I'll press my big red button too. And when she does, the ass of her giant robot opens up to reveal an ass ton of missiles, and they all fire off, and they all hit O'Bannon, and he's gone. He's completely vaporized. So Harley goes, picks up Tony, and says, hey, turns out I had a hit put on me by this mobster guy. It's only kind of my fault his son is dead, but like, not really. He signed a waiver. So why don't we go pay him a visit? Let's take care of business. So over at Capablo's place, all of a sudden there's an earthquake. He's like, wait a minute, this is Brooklyn. That doesn't make any sense. And then the roof gets lifted off. It's revealed that it's Harley. He just fires off a normal ass pistol at it, being like, you can bring on an army. I can never die. And she turns around in the giant robot suit, sits on the open hole of the roof, and opens up the ass blasters. So he's now also dead. And that's the issue. Why you gotta do this to me, Palmiotti and Connor? Why you gotta do that? It's so much. It's so over the top. Like, I really want to go back to that first page where we show Harley's like monster robot in the middle of town. And like it never appears in the book like this, and they have little things down the side saying like, oh, it's piloted by like Poison Ivy and Queenie, and Eggy's there, and a chicken named Mike, and also a monster named Monzilla. None of that happens. Not a goddamn thing of it. Am I taking a Harley book too seriously? Yes, I am. But god damn it, this is my show. I don't know. What do you want me to say? It's just a good time sort of book. Don't think about it too much sort of book. And honestly, if we're wrapping up the series, if we're only in 2 issues of this series, this one and the next one, fine. If you want to have a giant robot thing and then just whatever we do with the next issue, so be it. I'm happy that we're not opening up new threads here. The only new thread is there's now a giant robot, which frankly it seems like the kind of thing that can just disappear at a moment's notice anyway. So 6.5. Whatever. Harley Quinn number 30, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Elsa Charretier. So, who cares about the last issue? It happened. This issue is just kind of its own thing. We open up at a movie theater, and to be clear, This is coming out pretty much at the same time as the Suicide Squad movie is. So just know that the writers are being topical. So we open up with a whole bunch of DC heroes all in this theater. And Harley has already made her way through her second thing of popcorn before the movie's even started. So she runs back out to the concession stand. And by the way, I'll just say here, this is a dream sequence. It's implied to be from the beginning. Everything is a little bit weird and off kilter. But as she's passing by the line of the concession stand, Penguin steps out and says, "Excuse me, you need to follow the rules." And she's like, this place just like took $16 for what is 16 cents worth of popcorn. I'll be filling it up until I get my due. And then everyone else is like, "Oh, you have to play by the rules, da da da," and they all turn into the Penguin. And then she's like, whatever, I don't need the popcorn. So she dumps it on one of their heads. We then see as she's trying to find her way back to her theater, the name of the movie is not the Suicide Squad, it is the Kill Yourself Crew. Sure. So as she's making her way down, eventually she comes across a guy who looks suspiciously like the old man from Up. And she's like, "Hey, what are you doing out here? What movie are you getting out of?" And he's like, "Kill Yourself." And she's like, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "No, the Kill Yourself Crew movie. I just finished that. Now out of my way, I gotta pee." And she basically picks him up and says, "Hey, you got to show me the theater it was. I need to get back there." However, he can't hold his bladder. He ends up peeing on her. So she dumps him inside of a trash can, and then she finally runs her way back into the theater. As she gets in, it's chaos. All those DC heroes that were in there are fighting against each other. She gets up to Tony and is like, "Hey, what did I miss?" And he says, "Oh, the magic trees. They started growing fruit, and then they grew kittens." And she's like, "Oh, no, I missed the kittens." And then we cut to reality, which is where she's strapped herself to a tree with chains as she's like coming out of a dream. And Tony's there saying, "Hey, you dozed off. It was like an hour there." Expository. You are trying to save this tree from demolition because it is in one of the last pieces of greenery in Brooklyn or whatever. And they're putting up just these massive high-rise apartment buildings or whatever. And basically just complaining over the fact that, like, you know, only the super rich can live here. The whole neighborhood's going to hipsters and whatever else like that. Like, nobody can afford to be here. And Harley's like, "I'll stay chained to this tree as long as it takes." And Tony says, "Hey, that's cool. You've got a shift down at the nursing home in like 30 minutes. And she's like, "Crap, Tony, do me a favor." And so Tony's now strapped to the tree and she's running off saying, "I'll be back at 6." So we then see on a subway, Harley sitting in a seat, and she offers it up to a pregnant woman. But as she stands up, some other douche jumps in and sits in the seat, and the pregnant woman's like, "I'm getting off at this stop anyway, it's no big deal." And Harley's like, "No, this is about the principle of the thing." So she goes after the douche. The douche does not care. He literally is like, "Oh no, like, oh, I've learned the error of my ways. I'm definitely going to change my life and not sit in seats when they become open, da 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 da." And Harley just gives him an atomic wedgie and like wraps him around one of the handlebars on the subway. So we get to the nursing home. We see a bunch of elderly residents are being shipped out, and Harley's like, "What's going on here?" Turns out that there was a scam that went around on the phone saying, like, you know, the IRS owes a big amount of money, and they all fell for it, and now they can't afford to stay here anymore. And Harley's like, "Good, I'm going to add those people to my list." So she gets in and she's talking to a Mr. Woodson, who is coming here for depression and hopelessness. He talks about a friend who recently died a week ago. It was his closest friend. They shared he shared all the secrets with him, and now he's gone. And turns out it was his bird. It was a pet bird. And Harley's like, "Oh, well, I mean, that's still important that, you know, you lost someone close to you, but have you ever thought about maybe just getting another pet and like being able to do that?" And he says, "Oh, my wife died several years ago, and I was praying for a sign, and then that bird just landed in my lap. So it can't just be any bird. Like, I don't feel comfortable just going down to the pet store and getting one." And Harley's like, "Okay, was your wife like big and dramatic?" And she's like, "Oh, absolutely." And it's like, "Okay, let's go check this out." So they go up to the roof, and calling back to like 15 issues ago, Harley whistles really loud, and then all of a sudden the flock of parakeets just swarm into the building, and they circle around Mr. Woodson. One lands in his lap, and he's like, "Oh, this is going to be my new best buddy." So Harley then calls up Coach from the team of Harleys, gang of Harleys, and says, "Hey, can you get a link on the people who drained the bank accounts of my nursing home residents?" And she's like, yeah, it should be fine. I'll have the gang of Harleys on it by sundown. Should be fine." So Harley then picks up some food after her shift, like the whole rest of the day happens. She goes back to free Tony and take back the spot. However, Tony's being attacked by construction workers who are trying to get their job there done. And they're unable to do anything, so they call over their biggest dude named Dookie Dave. And Dookie Dave's like, you got 5 seconds, little man, just get out of here. And Tony sees he's carrying some pails. He's like, do you have lunch in there? He's like, no, there's cement. So Harley jumps in the middle, starts saying, hey, you know, pick on someone your own size. And Dave just throws her across the entire lot, no problem. As she lands, she's greeted by some other locals, some neighborhood people who are like, yeah, we don't want this lot to be turned to an apartment building either. We're on your side. We're ready to help you fight. So Harley was like, that's great and all, but just hold back for a little bit because I want to do something. So Dave's trying to get Tony out of the chains. In comes Harley in an 18-wheeler, just hits Dave dead on, punches him through a brick wall, and she's like, that'll teach you to pick on someone not your own size. That is to say, if you're not already dead. However, doing this has enraged the entirety of the rest of the construction crew. They're ready to start attacking Harley. Harley's like, fantastic. Because all of you are against me, I can go full Tasmanian devil and not care about who I'm hitting. And then the rest of the neighborhood comes up and says, don't worry, Harley, we got your back. And she's like, wait, no, I just said I don't want to care about who I'm hitting. So the neighborhood's now fighting against the construction company. Harley goes over and talks to Tony. They sit down and just have some food because Harley has realized it's not up to her to save the tree. The tree belongs to the neighborhood. We all have to fight for it. And then in comes a giant backhoe machine, just knocks down the tree, just straight up murders it. Out steps a construction like management or something saying, I own this property. I'm therefore allowed to knock down my own trees. And all of you can scram, get off the property. And Harley's like, I've got an idea. I got a plan B here. And she's texting somebody. We then see her, Tony, go down to a bar where they're cracking jokes from the locals. And then in comes Poison Ivy. And she's like, oh, Ivy, I'm so happy to see you. And Ivy's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Where is it? And she's like, straight to business. I like that. They go to the tree. Ivy does some investigation. She tells Tony to go get a bunch of hoses, and she's like, okay, I did some reading, and this city was once a marshland. It was once a wetland that it was unable to have anything built on it. They then changed that, but the laws still say that you cannot build on what is currently wetlands or woodlands and all that, so we just got to convert it back to that. And they, to be clear, this is the last issue of Harley Quinn prior to Rebirth. They do a bit here where Harley hits the tree with a new blend that, I'm going to quote here, a special blend I made. We're going to have the best of both worlds. And the tree starts growing, and she says, hey, grab my arm. We'll have a better view of the rebirth from up here. They're just poking fun. So as Harley and Ivy climb up the tree, they look out. They see this entire thing is getting transformed very quickly into like some marshy wetlands where animals can live and stuff like that. And just like, oh yeah, this is great. So they basically say, okay, well, hey, Harley, how's the rest of your life going? You still got all these other plates spinning and all these other things we haven't dealt with yet. And Harley goes, that's a problem for next issue. Let's just enjoy ourselves now. And Ivy says, all right, but you still owe me a trip to the Bahamas, which I think happens in like issue 6 of the new Harley Quinn Rebirth series. So yeah, that's Harley Quinn. That's the series. That's how we end it. I kind of like them taking just page after page to say, like, this is a thing that sucks. And, like, Harley can only do so much about it. Like, oh, these people are being drained of their money by scams. Harley's going to have the people, like, beaten up by her gang of Harleys. The guy lost his bird. She gets him another one. And it's, like, done with emotion and intent. Like, I appreciate the messages that we're going for here. It's a matter of the last issue was a giant fighting robot. Like, if this is what the book was always doing, I'd be like, yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. But this just kind of feels like all right, it's a fine one-shot. It's a fine single issue. But, like, you just spent an entire issue beforehand about ass bombs. I don't know what you want me to be feeling here. So it's not bad individually. But the series as a whole, I've been saying this top to bottom, just not for me. The humor is not for me. The way it's written is not for me. I prefer to have a lot of closure and like set arcs and sort of things. You can have the larger meta arc going on, but I want there to be like stories being told and not just the ramblings of a madwoman. So Yeah. This one, I mean, the art style's fine, but like it also is doing something. As I'll give this issue a 7, but that's not representative of the whole series. I don't know what the average would be, but it's probably lower than that. That's Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys, number 3, written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Frank Tieri, art by Elaine Morissette and Alex Tefengji. Apologies. Last issue, the Harley Sin group, their gang, went and used a rocket launcher on the restaurant that the gang of Harleys were hiding in, and they all blew up, and they're definitely dead. No way around that. So this issue picks up with the villains like, should we go check? Should we do that? And the one big one's like, screw that, we exploded them, I'm taking this as it is, plus I got a date tonight, and I make this suit look good. So he calls it into Harley Sin and says, hey, we blew them all up, they're all definitely dead. We then cut over to Bolly Quinn, who is on the phone with her mom. Her mom's like super concerned, saying like, oh, are your friends eating all our food, blah, 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 like that, because they're hanging out in her family restaurant. She basically just talks for a moment to Harlem Harley about, hey, you know, sometimes like they don't accept me, they don't know like the sort of life I lead, they don't get it, but I still want to protect them. And Harlem Harley's like, I get it, we all have that same sort of thing, it's a difficult thing to do. However, they get tipped off because the one big guy threw down a cigar onto a car outside. They look up and see the rocket launcher and they're like, ah, crap, all right, and they run inside, tell everyone they've got an incoming RPG. They all book it to the freezer in the back of the kitchen, and they close the door, which I guess allows them to survive this massive ass explosion. So we cut to Harley, who's still tied up. Harley Sin comes in and it's like, hey, guess who just killed your entire squad? And Harley's like, I ain't gonna believe you. You got nothing to prove that. And she's like, really? Check this out. And she shows images and live streams from the explosion at the restaurant. And Harley's like, okay, cool, how about you kill yourself? And she's like, ooh, all right, well, that's feisty, fair enough. We then go to Coney Island and we see news report that, you know, it exploded. That's where the Quinns were. Coach and Tony are like, well, let's see if we can get a hold of them. We'll do whatever we can. And one of them finally picks up their phone and sees they are still in the freezer. They're talking to Coach, and Coach is like, all right, I'm looking through some schematics for the place. Just give me a minute. For some reason, Bolly Quinn, I can never remember their names. Bolly Quinn is getting more and more upset over the fact that everyone's just like taking this so lightly. They're just like sitting there eating ice cream. Meanwhile, Bolly Quinn's like, this was my parents' place. Like their entire livelihoods was in this, and now it's gone, and they're all going to be pissed off and all that. So eventually they find that there's a trapdoor because this place used to be a speakeasy back in the 20s. And so they get out, they move into the back place, and Coach is like, cool, don't let the cops or the firefighters see you because everyone now thinks you're dead, which means that we can get the element of surprise going on here. So we cut back over to Harley and Sin. Sin's just like, oh, hey, now that I've killed them, hopefully you can see that I can build you a new, better team. And, like, we can work together and all that. And Harley's like, you know, maybe you're right. If they were able to be blown up so easily, maybe they weren't up to snuff. They would have failed me eventually. And Sin's like, oh, thank you. I'm glad you finally see it my way. However, of course, Harley's just undoing the knots around her hands. And when Sin reapproaches, Harley headbutts her, takes the rope, wraps it around Sin's throat, and is basically about to strangler until the new crew comes in and knocks her over the head with a chair. And they're about to start beating up Harley before Sin's like, no. Nobody hurts her. This is the new gang. This is what we're doing. You guys, we're all going to be part of the new gang of Harleys. So we see Coach has taken a taxi, or has given everyone a taxi ride up to a big old cabin out in the middle of nowhere in Woodstock, New York. And it's this beautiful place. They get a call from Hannah Quinn, who was meeting up with Uncle Cyborg, and they've got a hotel room. And they're like, yeah, nobody followed us. We're fine. It should be, we'll just hold out here until everything's said and done. However, we see that room service has a knife hidden under the platter. So, oh no, that's going to be something we have to deal with. As they get in, they're so impressed by the cabin. One of them says, "Oh, wow, I would literally kill my whole family for a place like this." To which Coach explains, "Oh, actually, I was inherited this by my family when we all got into that tragic accident that cost them their lives and me my ability to walk and my vision." To which point the other Quinns are like, "Nice job, you stupid. You want to push her down some stairs while you're at it?" So Coach brings him into the back, shows that she has like a war room, all these computer screens and weapons or whatever else like that. And she reveals, we know who Harley Sin is. Turns out she was present during the tryout period for the gang of Harleys, and they literally have a stock photo of her there. And it's like, yeah, she had a bad attitude. It's this whole other thing. Her real name, as far as we can tell, is Harleen Sinette, to which point one of the Harleys is like, Harleen is such a stupid name. And they're like, that's Harley Quinn's real name. And he's like, oh, okay, please don't tell her I said that. But Coach has managed to track down a credit card payment in the name of Harleen Sinette, which allows them to track down the warehouse that you used to pay on the credit card, and therefore they know where Harley is. We cut over to Harley Sin, who is being talked to by her henchmen, and the henchmen are like, hey, your payment didn't go through. We're going to have problems if that's the case. And Sin's like, that's impossible. Hold on, let me check. And she calls somebody up on the phone and says, did you freeze my account again? Okay, so here's the deal. You're going to do it, or I'm going to show up and I'm going to ruin your entire life. I'm going to show up to that thing you got with the charity and the mayor. Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow morning? Cool. Thanks. Bye. And turn back to the henchman being like, okay, so the funds will be there tomorrow morning. I just need you all to be patient. And they're like, maybe you don't know how this works, but the henchmen don't really wait to get paid. Like, if you're not, like, we're going to have some problems here. We're going to get mad. And Sin's like, oh, you don't say. So all of the gang of Harleys have now arrived at the warehouse. They're like, this place could be booby-trapped. We better be careful. And the woman kicks in the door anyway. They run inside expecting to get to Harley. And what they find is the entirety of Sin's gang have all been murdered, except for one guy, the big guy, who is still breathing. And he sits up and he's like, hey, yeah, I don't know where Sin took Harley, but I do know this place is booby-trapped and it's going to explode as soon as you guys walk in. And she's like, ah, crap. So they all run out the door as fast as they can. He has to be buried in the suit. And Harley's like, all right, you know what? I'm sick of all this. Let's go find out where she is and where she took Harley. That's the issue. Okay. Sure, she was someone who, like, we got a name, we got a where she came from. Theoretically, why she's upset, she didn't get asked to join the team. She was part of the tryouts and she didn't make it, so maybe that's all there is to it. But golly, I just barely care. I cannot express to you, like, I know that each of these members of the gang of Harleys ostensibly have their own personalities, their own wants, their own drives, their own characters, but I don't feel it. I don't feel whatever they're doing. They're all just like slightly lesser imperfections and copies of Harley. Like, that's all it is. And I don't feel like they're doing their own thing. I just feel like they're all aspects of the larger Harley, which frankly is not that interesting of a character anyway, with the way that it's written in this like new 52 period. So yeah, 6.5. Competently drawn. It doesn't go into too many complete non sequiturs. It's following a linear story, and I'm better with that. So, sure. Halfway through. Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys, number 4, written by Frank Tieri and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Elaine Morissette. So, last issue we had Harley Sin has killed her entire group, and the gang of Harleys is on the back foot. They don't know where to go. But one of the things we left off with was Hannah Quinn, who is separate from the group and is in a hotel protecting her uncle and is theoretically about to get attacked. And that's where we open with, is she's in the middle of getting attacked in Atlantic City. The room service turns out to be an assassin. And Hannah Quinn's holding her own, doing what she can with a knife. And Uncle Cyborg's just like, Jesus, this room, like, we've trashed it. This is going to cost us so much money. Just take this guy out already. So the room service charges forward with his knife, trips over a suitcase, and stumbles out the door. And Cyborg sees this happening, and he's like, I've got it from here. And he does his little wheelie thing to push the guy off the balcony down to the floor below. And he's like, all right, let's get out of here, because they can't charge us if we just say we lost our keys. However, as the room service was tripping, it turns out that he did manage to get a slice off on Hannah, and now she is bleeding out pretty badly. So we got over to Harley, who wakes up on a tiny itty-bitty little beach. One of the ones was like a single palm tree or whatever, and she's just wearing a bikini, and she's like, who changed my oh god, I feel violated. But she enjoys the view of this moonlit beach, and she's like, well, I guess I could just wade out in the water. And she's like, oh, that's weird. It's not getting any deeper, and also I don't feel like there's any temperature to the water. And then all of a sudden the water turns blood red, and the hand starts floating by, and she sees a shark fin, and she's like, all right, I gotta punch in the nose, right? That's what I gotta do? But it comes up from beneath the water in front of her and says, hello, may I floss your teeth with my bones? And she's like, what? Why? You're a shark. What? And you've got this weird toothy grin on you. And then it slowly transforms over from the shark into like a Joker fish into the Joker. And Harley's like, okay, I have no problem punching this in the nose. Whap. However, as she does so, she realizes how badly her hand hurts, and she's like, wait a minute, that felt like I was punching a wall. And all of a sudden, the thing fades away, and we see we're in a holodeck. It's all just make-believe. Joker's not actually there, and Joker is replaced with the image of Harley Sin, who's like, welcome to the sim room. I can have whatever you want. The world is at your command. And we instead get this deep in the Alps where she's wearing like a little skirt and lederhosen and whatever else, and she's like, all right, well, this is stupid. And Harley Sin's like, well, what do you want? I can give you whatever. And she's like, go to hell. So then the entire thing turns to a hellscape, and she's in like a demonic outfit, and it's like, all right, no, seriously, this is stupid. Cut the holographic. I want just you v me. And all the holographic stuff goes down. Harley Sin's just left standing there in front of her, and Harley's like, I know you're not here, but I still got to try it. And she swings for a punch. She's like, yeah, no, you goddamn it, get in here and fight me one-on-one. Let's do this. And we see Sin is somewhere else. She's got like meta goggles on, and she's like, oh, well, I wish I could be doing that. We'd be friends by now if all this was going differently, but you're making things a little bit difficult. So I've got to go through the trouble of doing all this. And we see as she gets up from her chair, she's on what is essentially an over-the-top Bond island with mechanical sharks and heads on spikes and a volcano, and there are skulls everywhere. So yeah, we then cut back over to Cy, who is carting Hannah out on his little wheelie scooter. Coach is saying, hey, Tony's got a guy, don't bring her to a hospital. We're trying to keep all the Quinns off of the radar right now so that Sin can't find them. But like Tony's guy will get her all patched up, no problem. And Sai's just like, oh, geez, even back in my day, we went to a hospital. Why does she have insurance if we're not going to take her to a hospital? So we see that as this call is happening, they've managed to find out some more stuff about Harley Sin, and more importantly, who she really, really is, which means all the Quinns are back in the back of a van, and they have to wait while Coach and Tony go inside of the Brand building. Now, I'm just going to say up front, this guy, Richard Brand, he is credited in this book as a New York real estate mogul. And he's Trump. Like, that's all it is. He doesn't have the same personifications, but like it seems like that's where we're going with it. So regardless, Coach and Tony force their way in, and just immediately, as they're about to get kicked out by security, start blackmailing him, being like, hey, you ever see this chick before? He goes by the name of Harley Sin, and he's just like, okay, yeah, you can stay. Come on in. What do you got? And basically says, look, we know, we've looked into you, that she is your daughter. And that rather than get her the help she needs, and rather than take care of her in any meaningful way, you just let her do whatever and then keep throwing money at her and like the people that are going to otherwise sue, depending on what it is. But now she blew up a restaurant, she killed a bunch of people and blew up a warehouse, and she's kidnapped our boss. So like, we're not happy about this, and if you don't give us what we need, then we'll go to the cops. And he's just like, I own the cops, I don't care, whatever. And he's just like, yeah, but you don't want this to come out, and frankly, aren't you tired of having to clean up her mess? Like, it feels like you're stuck underneath her. Don't you want this to just go away? And he looks out the window, he's like, all right, fine. So we meet back up with Captain Horatio Strong, who was in a Harley Quinn issue like a year ago, and he's now cured himself of an addiction to magical seaweed, and he's driving this boat out to the location, which is called the Island of Horrible Death, named by Harley's sin. And as they're driving their way out there, the fog is pretty bad, but it clears up as they approach the island, and they're like, oh god, this looks horrible. One of the Harleys is getting seasick pretty badly, so she just doesn't even wait to get to the coast. She just jumps off and starts swimming, and all the other Harleys are like, all right, yeah, we'll join in, I guess we'll do that as well. So they jump over, and Tony, Coach, all of them are like, god, they have no patience, they have no forward thinking, they just do whatever. They're never gonna last. So meanwhile, inside the compound, we see that there are also some henchmen here that are working for Harley's sin. There are two of them that are like, geez, did you hear she killed her entire previous crew? That's crazy. This one here, like, we just drop off food inside of her cell and we don't get any closer because the last henchman got kicked right in the nuts. So as they set the food inside, they look around and realize she's not in there. However, of course, she's just hiding in the rafters, and she's like, now here's the deal, you two. You can either tell me what I need to know, or you can run away. And either way, we're going to have some playtime here. And yeah, she just kicks their asses. The Quinns, the gang of Harleys, as they are coming onto the island, they all of a sudden feel themselves getting bit a lot. And as they get bit, they realize that there are some, I believe, just joker fish, but they have a Harley pattern on them now. Or they're piranhas, I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, they strip them off. Then they look down at the beach and they say, hey, there's a little egg thing here that looks a lot like Eggsy, but it's a grenade. And then all of a sudden they start exploding, and they've got to run through this whole minefield of them. As they get a little bit further, they realize, okay, is this all stuff that's just from Harley's past? Like, are we just doing things that are like reminders of things that we've done in this run? And they get wrapped up by some seaweed, which reminds us of Horatio Strong's seaweed thing. One of the Harleys starts cutting through it with a knife to free the other ones. And finally, they're like, okay, look, every single time that we get out of a thing, we say, phew, that was close, but we're safe now, or what could possibly go wrong? We keep saying stuff like that. Everyone just be pessimistic. This is going to suck, and we're all going to die. And as they're saying that, they look over across the field, and they're like, hey, that's Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Power Girl. They're here to save us. We're saved. And then they realize it's robot mechanical killer droids. And they're like, whoops, we said it again. And that's the issue. I will say the little section of Tony and Coach going to the brand guy and like saying, hey, you got to tell us where she is, where we can go next. That part was fine. It actually had almost a moment of like emotional maturity to it, of like, she's not getting the help she needs and you're only enabling her. Don't you want us to be able to take care of that? And like, he's clearly a bad father, but at the same point, he's parenting the only way he knows how. And I appreciate the sentiment in that scene. All of the surrounding stuff I don't care about. Not a single second of it. The holodeck stuff, it's... Look, if you've been listening to the Harley books at all, for me, from any period of time, there are so many goddamn issues that just stop everything, have a little dream sequence so the artist can draw whatever they want, and then continue on. And that's what we had. That's what this is. That's what the holodeck thing is. It's just doing that over and over again. So... I don't know. 6. It's got issues, and I'm getting more and more frustrated with it because the book title implies that I'm going to care about the gang of Harleys. And every issue that passes, they're not doing anything. They are just like, I'm waiting for the moment where we develop them. We do something interesting. We make them their own people. But every turn is just... And they're continuing to do the same stuff over and over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, well, then I'm not going to care. because until we can see some change happening, it's not going to matter. So, yeah, 6. Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys, number 5, written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Frank Tieri, art by Elaine Morissette, Inaki Miranda, and Dawn McTeague. So this is very much a book of 2 sides, one of which is the full origin and backstory of Harley Sin, and the other is the continuing of the gang of Harleys getting onto the island. I'm going to lead with the latter, but just know that they're intercut with each other the entire way, and I don't want to keep jumping back and forth. So, previous issue, we had the gang had made it to the island. There's a bunch of booby traps, and they ended with some robot versions of Poison Ivy, Catwoman, and Power Girl. And this just opens up with the continuation of those fights. We see that the robots clearly have the upper hand. They're made out of metal, so their normal punching and stabbing don't do much of anything. Power Girl even has cannons in her boobs, which fire shots at them. And as they're fighting against each other, they're just like, okay, well, these things are friggin' Terminators. How are we supposed to take them out? And Harley's like, of course, Terminator. That's what we do. We run. And so they just start sprinting across the island. Turns out that Harley is leading them back to the minefield of egg bombs from the previous issue. And she's like, do your best to not touch any of them, because we need them to explode on the robots. And so they dance around it, and as the robots enter the field, they set them off and cause them to explode. So there's a moment where it looks like, oh no, they're still moving, but they all just collapse the moment that they get a second of screen time. So after that, the Quinns are like, okay, cool, we did it. We're successful. And then they hear a cry for help from just through the clearing. And as they approach, they find Harley, who has escaped from the compound, but she's up a tree and is being attacked by man-eating demonic goats. And she's like, oh my god, my gang of Harleys, you're here. I'm so happy to see you. Could you maybe save me from these horrific man-eating goats? And they're like, okay, well, these ones aren't robots, and we need to be able to find a way to beat them. They're stronger than us. We can't just stab them. Like, what do we do? And one of the Harleys is like, hey, I've got a plan. And they run back over to the robots and grab, like, the cannon arm from Catwoman and blast some of the goats. And just like, all right, great. And then the other one has Power Girl's boobs, which have a cannon in it. And he just like, all right, I got to cock it first. Tee-hee. And takes the shot and blows it all up. So that's all that sort of stuff. Harley's like, hey, you saved me. Fantastic. And they are profusely apologizing for letting all this happen. They're like, oh, we thought, it was a fake kidnapping and then a real one and then the syndicate and all this stuff. And Harley's like, enough. You guys did great. You found me. You did all this stuff. You're a gang of Harleys that I can be proud of. Fantastic. However, instead of just leaving the island, as they were all prone to do, they're just like, hey, let's get out of here. We got a boat. Like, we can get out of here. And Harley's like, no. I'm going to go kick Harley Sin's ass. She has been absolutely horrible, and I'm going to get my revenge on her. So that's where we lead off that part of the plot. But then for Harley Sin's origin, we see that her parents got married in a marriage of convenience. It was just for image and power and money's sake. And when she was born, they didn't really pay much attention to her. She was always left with babysitters and other stuff like that. Anytime that she started lashing out, they just never listened. They threw more money at it. And so she was always on the back end of that. She then started lashing out further because she realized she's not going to get her parents' attention that way. And so eventually someone got shot, someone got stabbed. She set fire to a building. 2 people died in the fire. And over time, her parents are like, okay, you need to be dealt with. We're going to send you away. And they sent her to a private island that Mr. Brand had. Oh, by the way, her full name is Constance Brand. It doesn't come up. So she's sent to this island, and that's where she's going to live for the foreseeable future. And as she grows up there, she is not allowed to make friends with any of the help, any of the people that are there working. Not that she doesn't try, but that anytime that someone gets too friendly with her, they're like immediately removed and sent back to the mainland and replaced. And Harley Sin posits that is because her parents are still trying to make themselves look good in Sin's eyes. And we see, like, they send a whole bunch of Christmas presents to the island and say, yeah, that one's from me. Why don't you open? And she's like, I want to come home. And it's like, well, that ain't going to happen. So eventually she threatens a boat captain who does the food drop-offs to bring her back to shore, ends up killing him anyway, makes her way into her father's office just being like, look, I can cause a huge PR crisis for you. I can ruin everything that you've ever built here. I'm going to spill everything I know about you unless you just continue to write me checks for whatever I want to do. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So at that point, she started crashing out. She piercings, tattoos, drugs, alcohol, just ruining herself every way she can imagine how, until eventually she gets a call from her dad. Turns out her mom died, and in that moment her dad pulls her in and says, hey, we need to be there for each other. I'm sorry for everything that happened. Let's do a fresh start. And she is genuinely hopeful in that moment that there can be a fresh start there. Before too long, a man of his power, obviously he gets remarried. The woman that he marries already has a daughter named Gina. And immediately Gina and Sin hit it off to the point where they start being romantically involved. They talk about changing their lives together, no more drugs, alcohol, violence, any of that stuff. And while Sin takes it to heart, she actually interviews for a job at her dad's company, tries to change her life. For Gina, it's a little bit more just talk. It's not actually something that she was committing to the point where almost immediately, as soon as Sin starts turning around her life, Gina dies of an overdose, and Sin is the first one to find her. So they have a funeral. The parents, especially her new stepmom, just blame Sin for corrupting her daughter because it's easier than facing the facts themselves. And so on their parents' wedding day, on the step-parents' wedding day, as the stepmother's still tearing Sin a new one, Sin just tries to strangle her. She doesn't kill her, but she realizes, there's nothing. I'm completely empty. It's a void. I don't even feel anything as I'm doing it. And then eventually she sees a newspaper with the ad for joining the gang of Harleys. She sees something in Harley that she saw in Gina as well, but more put together, someone who's not going to fall back, do whatever else. So during the whole story arc where Harley has a hit out on her head, she apparently was working from the background to help save Harley without her even knowing about it. And when the tryouts finally came, she got in, but unfortunately she got sucker punched during the melee phase, and so she was out of the group. But she always sat by the side, still obsessed with Harley, saying, I'm in. I'm going to be able to force my way in there somehow. So with her still believing that the extra Harleys are dead and only the one Harley's left, she says, well, I've summoned a new entire huge amount of trained killers. I've let them loose on this island, and I promised $10 million to whoever brings me the head of Harley Quinn. So that's next issue. The backstory's good. I argue it's even borderline teetering on great. I appreciate the idea that they put in so much thought to how does this character get to be tragic to a point? How do we make them this is a real person who went through severe mental problems, trauma, stuff like that. Yes, they had a bad setup from the beginning and probably do have a mental illness regardless of their upbringing, but it was not treated properly. They did not go through the correct process, and that's something that we're going to focus on. That's something we're going to bring to light here. Good. I like it. The way that it's formatted, it's done in this slightly different way where nobody really has speech bubbles. They all just have captions above or below the boxes. It's done in a very different way. All that stuff is fine. The rest of the issue, whatever. Don't care. It's just where the story naturally had to go. I say that out of both I'm glad you did it and frustration, because this book has been promising me the gang of Harleys and how their characterization is going to be. And instead we get this deep, intricate backstory of the villain. If you wanted to do that, don't make it about the gang of Harleys. Don't make it 6 characters that I still don't know a goddamn thing about. Anyway. Is it good? Yes. I think this is probably the best issue of the series thus far. Maybe the finale will top it, but it's good. It's just disappointing the fact that we had this in the canon. We had this ready to go in terms of this level of quality of character development, and we spent none of it on the gang of Harleys. So I can't say lower than a 7. I did genuinely enjoy reading part of it, but I don't think I can go higher either. I think that's kind of where I'm at. So 7 it's got its good qualities, but like the book as a whole is just a failing point now in terms of what we set up and what we're actually wanting to do. Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys, number 6, written by Frank Tieri and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Elaine Morissette. So final issue. Last issue we left off with the idea that Harley wants to go kick Harley Sinn's ass, and Harley Sinn, feeling betrayed that Harley Quinn escaped and blah, 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 has sicked a bunch of killers that she's promising $10 million for whoever kills Harley Quinn. So Harley and her gang are making their way deeper onto the island, and Tony's there, and he's basically like, hey, so what's the deal with her? Like, what's you've learned about Sin? What's going on there? And she's like, oh, she's this crazy girl. She's obsessed with me, and like, she's got mental illness. She's got a lot of problems here. And I know I usually help people with mental illness, but like, I really don't know if she can be helped and all this stuff. But like, maybe I still should give her a try. And Tony's like, am I a part of this conversation? It seems like you're just talking to yourself now. And she eventually stops and just like, look, change of plans. I know I said I wanted to go like attack Harley Sinn and all that, but I think maybe it would be best if we take this a different route. Like, she's not beyond saving, and all the rest of the gang of Harleys are like, she's the worst. We nearly died like 4 times because of her. Like, she's tried to kill us so much. She had robot versions of Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Power Girl. And Harley's like, what? Where are they? Let me see them. And it's like, we blew them up. They're not a thing. And she's like, fine, we're going to have to go talk to Harley Sinn because she may have more robots. I'm hoping a Wonder Woman one. And everyone else fantasizes about whatever other robots they want to have there. However, before they are able to do anything, before they can even move again, all of a sudden they are beset by the horde of killers that have been hired to kill them all. And it's like, well, everyone run, split up, take as many as you can. We're fighting for our lives now. And we see it's just immediately utter chaos. They have no idea what they're supposed to do here. They do make specifically the point that if you take down one of the killers, don't just leave behind their gear. Like, grab their gear and use it to help your own fight. And they point out, like, yeah, it's always so stupid in movies how they don't do that. Like, if you need bullets, they got guns. They're floating around everywhere. So we see Horatio Strong, Goat Boy, and Eggsy are watching from the boat, and they see all chaos has broken loose. And Strong's like, hey, I used to be a sniper in the army. I think I can help out. And so he sets up his sniper rifle, and he's ready to start taking shots. And for the next, 3 pages, anytime that anyone is about to get jumped from behind, immediately bullet to the head. Like, they're just gone. And Horatio Strong, Goat Boy's like, oh my god, you're so amazing, you're fantastic. And he's like, yeah, save the compliments for when we're done. Just keep shouting out areas I need to look at. So we see that's going on. Eventually Bolly Quinn comes up to Harley and is like, hey, you need any help? And he's like, nah, I'm fine, we're all good, let's just head over to the main building so we can take out Sin. And they talk about a little bit of Horatio Strong and how good of a sniper he is, and also Bolly's backstory of like, I had a good upbringing, but like my neighborhood was tough, and that's the whole thing. And Harley's like, yeah, the neighborhood's always changing. And then they notice a camera in a tree, and they're like, oh, hey, Harley Sinn is watching us. And they both flipper the bird, to which Sin is like, all right, well, if they're going to be coming for me, then I'm going to be ready. And she does the whole preparing sequence. She gets on a bunch of knives and guns and other tools like that, but she doesn't even make it out the door. She's still posing by the time that Harley shows up and just being like, I know your real name is Constance, and I know everything about you, and I want to strike a deal. And Sin's like, okay, what kind of deal? And Harley says, we fight, no weapons, just hand to hand. If you win, you're in my crew immediately, and like, you will be treated well. You will have a family that always has your back. It is an A+ deal for you. If you lose, then you have to get professional help. And I'm talking about real solid stuff. And maybe one day, if you are better, then you can come and we can see if we can get you back into the group again. Either way, that option is open, but only if we have that deal right here, right now. And Sin's like, all right, and what makes you think I would want to join that group to begin with? And Harley's like, you know all about me. I deal with people who are different. I deal with that sort of thing. I think that you and I are not that different, but we are different from the rest of the world, and I know what you're like. I want to give you a chance. And my gang of Harleys is currently blowing their way through your entire hired hit squad, and when they get in here, I am not going to be able to stop them from putting a bullet in your head unless we've already finished our job. So Sin's like, fine, all right. So she casts off all the stuff that she just prepped herself with. Quinn just sits down on a chair in the background. Is like, I guess I'll fight. I'll watch this. This is fine. And yeah, they just start slugging it out at each other. Harley very quickly knocks down Sin. Sin apparently doesn't break the rules, but she grabs a monitor from a nearby screen and just hits Harley over the head with it. Harley's like, all right, fine, whatever. And she gets back up, throws another few solid punches, and gets Sin back on the back foot. And she's like, there, let's call it a draw and we can move on. What do you say? And Sin says, I say, and she pulls out a knife that she had hidden on her and says, I'm going to slice that pretty throat of yours. And Harley just grabs her hand, throws the knife aside and says, you're a cheater. I gave you an opportunity and you couldn't even do that. I am so sick of trying to be nice to you. And she just gets Sin in a chokehold and puts her out, just straight up like, ugh. So she's unconscious. The rest of the gang have made their way in. They're like, oh, hey, you did it. Cool. Awesome. And then she's like, cool. How's it out there? It's like, oh, everyone's dead. It's a slaughterhouse. It's horrible out there. So Harley directs everybody like, okay, you all get Sin, grab everybody, take them out to the boat. Quinn, you hang back for a second. We're going to wipe all the hard drives of like security cameras and stuff. No, we were never here. None of that stuff. And we'll head out to the boats. And so they do. And as they're on their way back, they get news for Hannah Quinn, who, of course, was being rushed to one of Tony's guys for her stab last issue. She's fine. She's on the upswing. Everything's going to be good there. And they just kind of talk for a little bit of like, yeah, you know, if you're going to be the gang of Harleys, if you're going to keep on doing whatever you're doing, then you're going to go through some crazy stuff like this. Like, did I ever tell you about the universe hopping adventure I had with Power Girl or how I traveled through time? And it's like, yeah, I think we've heard that story. That's fine. So we cut a little bit ahead. We see that Harley has dropped Sin off in a hospital and she's strapped down. She's talking to a cop who's like, look, Brand is going to do what he needs to do. This is going to be treated as a mental health crisis and not for the numerous murders she committed, but she's going to get the help that she needs. We've got a nice hospital upstate and it's going to treat her well. And she comes in and talks to Brand and it's just like, hey, she was good and all that, but you can't just dump her into someone else's lap. Like, I hope you get that this time. She's like, yes, I realize that now. Harley says it's not too late to change, which he says, I sure hope she does. And Harley's like, I wasn't talking to her. So back over in Brooklyn, over at Hannah Quinn's place, they brought along pizzas and beers, start scarfing them down. A nurse comes in and says, you can't have beers in here. And they just wrap her up in like a curtain and dangle her out the window. Meanwhile, as like a week later, Harley's Sin is being transferred to whatever facility, we see that the ambulance hits a roadblock. Richard Brand gets out of his car, hands a briefcase full of money and says, change of plans. We're sending her somewhere else. And we open up with her in a dark, dingy cell strapped to a bed. And she's like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm supposed to be going to a nice place, upstate, a good mental health facility. And the voice outside is like, oh, well, you are in a mental health facility. It ain't good, though. This is a bad place to be. And she's like, what? No, Harley promised me. And the voice is like, you trusted Harley? That bitch, she's the worst. She doesn't care about anything. She will watch you sit in here and suffer for the rest of your life while she's out there living the high life. She doesn't give a damn about you. Just look at all the other people that she's got around her. She's whatever. And Sin starts crying, and she's like, no, please, where am I? She promised to help. Who are you? And the voice outside is like, who am I? Well, I guess you could say I'm an ex-boyfriend of Miss Quinn. And we get revealed it's the Joker. He's just mopping up in Arkham Asylum, which is where Harley Sin currently is. Oh, no. Oh, God. I guess she'll have a vendetta and be even worse. Last issue was better. Yeah, no, I don't like, I can see that there's like a message in here of like, you can't just like try to go to someone and say, I'm here to fix your mental illness, and then it's fixed like that. Like, she still was just as broken. She pulled out the knife, and then, like, yeah, we had to go back, and she has to get actual real help. And then the tragedy here is that she's not going to. It's Arkham, literally the worst place. So I can see the message. I see it written there. But it's not done as well as the last issue was with her backstory. And frankly, this just furthers my point that I've had since, like, issues 2 or 3, which is, how the hell is this a story about the gang of Harleys? The final fight, the last things we have in this are Harley versus Sin, and then Sin in Arkham Asylum. The gang does not matter. They are completely inconsequential. They are just B-ring fodder for this story about Harley and a new arch nemesis. And that's fine. You're allowed to have that. I'm fine with that being a miniseries or an arc in the main book or whatever else. But when you open up the book with a breakdown of all the different members of the team, you're making a promise about what this book is going to be and then failing on that promise. So overall, 6. I already, just going in with my preconceived notions of Harley, I do appreciate this book does not have as much non sequitur humor. I appreciate that it plays a little bit more straight than the main book, but it just flaws from the concept because we're talking about this gang of Harleys that frankly never got fresh character traits, never got fleshed out in any meaningful way. They're just background fodder for this story about Harley Sin, and that's not okay. Harley's Little Black Book, number 4, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Joseph Michael Linsner, Billy Tucci, and Flaviano. So this issue is all about the Bombshells universe. For anyone unfamiliar with that, it is an alternate Earth where a bunch of female superheroes went to the front line during World War II, and DC started it with little statuettes and turned it into a book. The book was about a year old by the time that this issue came out, but we open up with, in media res, Batwoman, Big Barda, Amanda Waller, and Harley are all flying in on a plane somewhere into Germany. And Harley is like, well, funny story how he ended up here. This is a whole crazy thing going on here. And we see them parachuting down onto the ground, but they're like, well, let's rewind a little bit and say exactly how we ended up in this freezing cold in the middle of the German Alps. So we go back to Coney Island, which is, God, this is so confusing. This issue is set after issue number 5. So it's like a week from now, and it opens with Big Tony saying, you stole Superman's balls? And we get the explanation that apparently during the adventure, Harley took some little orb things that have some pseudo-scientific things that happen, and one of them is a time-traveling ball. And she's like, yeah, I guess I can do that. It'll open up like a parallel timeline or whatever. And Big Tony and Eggsy are both like, that's the dumbest like, you should not be doing that. That's just rife for ruining everything. We're going to bounce. We don't want any part of this. So they leave the room. Harley goes, sits on her toilet, throws down the ball. It causes a portal to open up. She jumps on in. And when she comes out, she is somewhere in an army camp's latrine. And she's hailed over by someone. I'm sure he has a name. It might be Sergeant Rock, if I'm being honest, but apparently she's got the code name Nuthouse. I guess that's the Harley of this world. And it's like, hey, come on, we got the mission. You got to get over here now. And he's starting to say, like, you're going to parachute in and you're going to get General Beatty's exact location and get him out alive. Any questions? And Harley's like, yeah, who, what, and where? I have no idea what's happening right now. And he's like, Jesus, what did you do in that bathroom? All right, fine. I'll give you another rundown. So they go into a tent and give the whole rundown. Turns out there is a brigadier general named George Beatty who is captured by Germans. He's got some secrets that they don't want the Axis to get. So they are to get in there and free him from this huge castle area nearby. And they've all got their orders, everything they got to do. And Harley's like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm back in Nazi time. I'm going to go kick Nazi ass. That's amazing. I'm so in on this. And he's like, what do you, sure, yeah, fine. I'm glad you're excited about it. Now go out on the plane. Your objectives will be written in the envelope. So we skip ahead to them jumping out of the plane. They're landing on the ground. It's snowy. It's freezing cold. They all get handed some fur jackets that they had in their knapsacks and make their way into a small town nearby named Werfen. In Werfen, we see that there is a Nazi bar, and at the bar, there is a performing act of Zatanna, and she's there doing her own thing. We see some of one of the waitresses at the very least is working with the group. It's Catwoman, and she's saying like, okay, while all the men are distracted by Zatanna, I can go out and I can do what I need to do. So she exits out of the bar and goes to talk to this guy who has a tunnel built, and they go through the end of the tunnel to let in Batwoman, Big Barda, and Harley. Turns out Amanda Waller didn't join for whatever reasons. So and then we cut over to the Nazi castle, and it turns out that they are expecting someone named the Schlachtertochter, means slaughter daughter, and they're waiting for her to show up to interrogate the general, and just saying, yep, that's what's going to happen, so keep up appearances until she gets here. So all the girls are getting ready. They're dressed up in like traditional German female wear, very exploitative looking stuff, and saying like, all right, it's going to be easier for us to sneak and kind of flirt our way inside rather than trying to fight through all of the German troops that are going to be there. So that's why we're doing it this way. And Harley and Barda go outside. They're standing out in the village looking over stuff and thinking like, we both prefer a more direct approach. We both want to just fight our way through, but that would be a suicide mission. And Harley's like, yeah, who could ever imagine going on one of those? So all of a sudden, just down the road, this car's coming up. It's got Nazi regalia on it. And inside is the Harley of this world. And she apparently, as it's explained later, is on a super top secret double down mission where she is the slaughter daughter. She is the one who has ingratiated herself. They've given fake identification and whatnot. And so she's going there to talk to General Beatty and try to get him out on her own stuff. But the two sides have not been speaking to each other. So as she's going down the road, there's a Dr. Haydick. I don't know. I don't recognize this guy at all. He's kind of flirting with Harley, and he gets distracted and ends up hitting our Harley in the middle of the road. So I'm going to say Bombshell Harley and our Harley. Bombshell Harley comes out and is like, wait a minute. Well, you look exactly like me. And as she's touching our Harley, all of a sudden there's some lights. There's an explosion of sorts, and our Harley's out for the count. She's taking a hit to the head. All the other girls come out and say, hey, what's going on here? Wait. Why do you look the way we remember you? You have blonde hair, whereas the other Harley has red and black hair. And she's like, we got to figure this out. We got to get inside. We can't be seen out here. So they get inside. Bombshell Harley explains all the stuff, how she was working as like a super secret agent. She was on this mission and all that. And they're a little bit upset with her for not sharing, and the fact that they were both going to go try to rescue the same guy and would have both been messing up each other's stuff. So now they're like, oh, well, that's why this doesn't work if we're kept in the dark between each other. We got to work together here. But then they look down at our Harley and just like, this must be a German spy. They must have realized something along the way, and they infiltrated with this German spy. Did we tell her anything? Does she know any of the facts? And Batwoman and Big Barda are like, yeah, she knows pretty much everything. Well, to be fair, she didn't read any of the stuff inside of her envelope, but maybe she's just a very crafty spy. So Harley's like, okay, we're just going to need to run it anyway. We need to do what we got to do here. We'll run with me doing the slaughter daughter thing, and then I will give you guys the signal once I feed the bad information to the Nazis that I'll get from the general, and that'll be your cue to come in and get him. It'll keep my cover, and then you can get him out, no problem. Okay, everyone cool? Let's go. Then we do the thing that Amanda Conner and Jim Palmiotti literally cannot stop doing. We get a dream sequence. What is our Harley seeing when she's passed out? She's in a little German tavern, and she's talking about how there's the Nazi castle up on the cliff, and she believes that a vampire lives in it. And she's like, screw that guy. I hate him. And she's about to say his name when they're like, no, please, it'll summon him. And she's like, that's a bunch of phooey. Jokula. And she says it over and over and over again. All the people go running, and she's like, see, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden she gets swooped up. She looks into his eyes, falls under his spell, and when she wakes up, he's delivered a lamb at the foot of her bed and says, drink the blood of this, and then you will build up to drinking the blood of villagers and whatnot. And she's like, what? I don't want to do that. And she's like, well, you will, because I bit you in your sleep, and you will soon turn into a vampire. And he steps out of the shadows. And I just... Not only is this a vampire Joker, it's a Nazi vampire Joker. How can you tell? He's got the mustache. So yeah, he's like, well, we are bound together now forever, our eternal love, and we will rule the entire world. And she's like, nope, I hate that. I don't like you picking out my life for me. I'm gonna murder your face. And she pulls out a gun, aims it under his head, and he's like, fool, simple bullets will not do me. And she's like, these are exploding rounds. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? So his head explodes. The mustache comes off and lands on Harley's upper lip, to which she freaks out and tries to blush away. And then the body of Jocula gets blasted out a window, breaks in half on the cliffside on the way down, and Harley drops a nuke on it. And then she wakes up. So when she wakes up, we see everyone's in their superhero outfits. They're about ready to go do their thing. And Harley's like, oh, geez, I've been out for a while. Okay. So here's my theory on what happened. That when me and the other Harley touched, it must have created a parallel universe, and now I don't have to worry about messing up the timeline or anything. So I'm completely free from paradoxes. And she tells Bombshell Harley to come down close, and then plants a big old smooch on her lips and says, haha, I knew it, I am a good kisser. So they're like, ew, God, German, ew, don't want it. So they all leave, and it's like, look, we'll be back for you once all this is done, you German spy, and we'll figure out what to do with you then. We see that Bombshell Harley goes to the Nazi castle. She introduces herself. She's the Slaughter Daughter. Everything checks out there. And she basically says, look, I need to check in with the guy first, get some baseline readings, and that'll really help me with the torture stuff later on. They've expressed that during the torture stuff, they want someone, a VIP, is showing up, and they want to see how a Harley works. And she's like, well, no sense in bothering them with this barely important question stuff. We'll get that done beforehand. So she steps in to talk to the general and gives the code word, and he's like, okay, who sent you all this? And she's like, it's fine. Did you tell them anything? It's like, no, nothing at all. So she's like, look, I'm going to inject you with a completely harmless serum. You're going to freak out a little bit. You're going to, quote unquote, tell me certain things. And then I'll relay those fake plans over to the Germans that we've already sorted out with high command. Everything will be fine, and we'll get you out of here. And it may result in taking down Germany once for all. So we see our Harley back at the tavern that she was tied up in. She breaks out and then gets distracted by some stew for a second. As she's walking up towards the giant Nazi castle, she sees a car coming up the road, and because it's so cold, she's like, well, I can hitchhike, why not? It stops, lets her in, and the car is literally driving Hitler. And she recognizes Hitler and says, hey, you're Hitler. And he says, yeah. And then she just starts ripping him a new one, just nonstop going in, like slapping him. He pulls out a gun, she beats it away, and she punches her in the throat, or punches him in the throat, really gets up on him. And it's just like reading the Wikipedia page of all the bad things Hitler did, and her just yelling at him for it. The driver turns around, tries to pull a gun on her as well. She snaps at him. The car goes careening off of a cliff, and it's just like, oh God, because some of the nearby guards are like, was that Hitler? That was the Fuhrer's car. Jesus Christ. Harley managed to get out at the last second. She takes the guns from the guards and then makes sure the car explodes. Hitler seems to be fine for the moment. He got out as well, but he's like, Jesus, man, that was a lot. So Harley, once again, has caused problems because in the explosion of the car, that makes the people back at the base, the bombshells, think that was Harley's signal to come up and then rescue the general. So now they're ready to start storming the base. Harley has already taken the initiative of she just busts into the castle where there's like 1,000 Nazi troops just standing there waiting. So now she's got to fight against all them. As the bombshells come in, they also help even the playing field a little bit. And Harley's like, oh, they came to save me, when in reality, they have no idea she was even here. As it continues on, we see that one of them, Harley, Bombshell Harley, requests for backup. But Hitler has managed to stumble his way in through like the back entrance or whatever. He sneaks into the castle. he sees all these other superheroines coming down, Stargirl, Supergirl, Wonder Woman, and he's like, all right, I must get to my bunker. And so he gets inside, but Harley follows him in, sees him about to close the door, and then sticks herself inside the room with him and just starts like pulling out mustache hairs and saying like, oh, you're literally the worst person ever, just da-da-da-da-da, and just keeps on going until finally he's like, I can't take this anymore. And he blows his brains out in the bunker, to which Harley leaves and says, geez, that guy cannot take any criticism. So the day is saved. Hitler is killed. The war is literally over. And Harley stands next to Sergeant Rock and is like, well, we did it. It's fantastic. It's going to be an interesting future for you guys since this was done differently. And then all of a sudden, her time travel thing wears off. She's returned back to her normal present. And as she exits the bathroom, Big Tony's there like, you've only been gone for an hour. What's up? She's like, I fought Nazis and we took out Hitler and all this other stuff. And he's like, okay, do you want food or not? And she's like, yeah, but like, I'm going to tell you the rest of my story. He's like, all right, sure, whatever. And that's the issue. That's it. Okay. I mean, it's in line with the rest of the little Black Book series. It's a fun little romp. I do find it weird that they explicitly pointed at something that happens in issue 5 and are saying that this takes place afterwards. The next issue I know is art by Neil Adams. I have to assume the art just wasn't done. Like, the book had to come out and they were like, I guess we'll put out this one first because the art is ready and we're just going to run with it. So, I mean, it's not the biggest deal. They explained it away easily enough, and it is a funny enough joke to say Superman's balls, but, you know, you play that card once. I'm curious to see how long it plays out in the next issue. The other weird thing is it's very disconnected from the first 3, in that there was a through line of those first 3 of the Legion of whatever's from the British side of things. Like, there was that Legion, and yeah, it felt like that was all wrapped up last issue, but they were in all 3 of the issues. It's weird that they just did a full stop here and said, okay, now we're doing something else. We're doing Superman's balls now. So, I don't know. It's not a bad thing. It's just weird that they fully shifted gears. So, I'm going to say, I'll say a 7.5. It's solid enough for what it is. I think the best part of this book is it gets me interested in the Bombshells line, which, like I said, had been going on for about a year at this point. This is one of the few things that'd be like, oh, okay, it seems like an interesting concept. It seems like more than just, pinup art, the book. So I'd be interested in checking that out as well now, based off of this, but that's about the most I could say for it. Harley's Little Black Book, number 5, written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor, art by Neil Adams. So, versus Superman, that's the whole thing in this issue. We open up with, like, literally a page of Harley and Superman boxing positions with some narration saying, like, oh, this in the red corner is Harley Quinn, and the blue corner is Superman, and they're fighting for the fate of Earth and all the humanity that lives on it. And we open up on the beach on Coney Island, and God bless Neil Adams, like, this page is so much going on, and it feels like the Palmiotti and Connor Bear were just dicking around with them. But it's a huge beach scene, and Harley's like, oh, yeah, I can never get a tan. It's this white skin, it's always a problem. But as she's putting on suntan lotion, doing whatever, all of a sudden something blocks her shade. And she looks up, and there's this weird-ass alien dude just hovering over top. And he's saying, hello, I am of the Scrub. And he's very loud, obnoxious, angry, but I'm going to tone that down. He's saying, I'm from the Scrub, and we have business with you, Harley Quinn. And Tony tries to step up. He immediately gets backhanded, and Harley's like, well, I don't like that. And so she punches the Scrub right in the stomach. Somewhere else in Metropolis, Superman hears some sort of high-pitched whine, and he jumps into a porta potty, turns into Superman, and flies up into space and discovers that there is an entire alien armada surrounding the Earth right now. Huge amount of ships. And he's like, Jesus, all right, well, it looks like they sent somebody down, an emissary to Earth. I better head down there and figure out what all this is about. So we see the Scrub guy is talking to Harley, and it's basically like, look, we are from a society that prides ourselves on warriors, valor, and abilities. And even if they are turned on us, we still value their ability to fight and whatnot. So you, Harley Quinn, have one of the greatest potentials for death and destruction, and we want you to take on our champion as Earth's greatest warrior. And Harley's like, me? Really? That's who you want for this? And she's asking about price, because, you know, if this is going to be a fight, she wants to know what the prize pool is. And it's like, the prize pool is the fate of Earth. If you lose, or if you don't do it, then... Or, sorry, if you don't do it, I don't think they specifically say you lose, but if you don't do it, we're going to destroy the Earth. And Harley's like, I don't know, that seems pretty far-fetched to me. I don't think you would do that sort of thing. And Superman swipes in and says, like, no, they're going to do it. They got ships out there. It's totally amazing. He's got the guy by the collar just like, okay, look, I am Earth's champion. I'm the one who needs to go out and do the fighting and all that. And the scrub guy's like, look, we get you're strong, but you're not from Earth. You're disqualified. We don't particularly care for that. And because you've now dared to lay hands on me, we're going to blow up Staten Island. And Superman's like, son of a... All right, Harley, keep an eye on this guy. So he flies up into space. We see there are two just giant nuke-sized missiles coming down to Earth, and Superman intercepts both of them. And Harley's like, ooh, now he's going to be pissed. So Superman swipes back down, grabs the scrub guy, just being like, all right, look, it's clear that you can't be bothered to take me on, so what's up? And he's like, well, I've got like a bunch more missiles, and I'll keep firing them unless you do what I say. And Superman's like, all right, what is it? And it's like, oh, the contest. You play by our rules or we'll destroy your planet. And so Superman brings him back down. And immediately, Superman and Harley are a little bit at odds of who should be the champion. And Superman's like, look, Harley, nothing against you, but clearly it needs to be me. I'm the, like, fate of the Earth. I'm the strongest there is. Like, I need to be doing that. And he's like, hey, or Harley's like, hey, look, you're just stealing my limelight. He came from me, and saving the Earth is like the second favorite thing from mine. And he's like, what do you mean second? It needs to be your first favorite. That's the thing. So at that point, he looks over at the guys, and Superman's like, look, I've got superpowers. I've got a better chance. I can do all that stuff. And Harley's basically saying, yeah, well, in a fair fight, I can mess your ass up. There's no way you'd be able to beat me. And the scrub guy says, fair enough. If you want to do it like that, then we'll have a qualifying round. You two versus each other to see who will face our reigning champion out in space. And we'll do it in a way where Superman does not have any powers. We have the ability to do that stuff. By the way, it's boxing. We're all doing boxing. And then he flies away. And, he sets a time limit of 24 hours. You got 24 hours to prep, and then we're coming to get you. So Superman flies Harley over to the Fortress of Solitude. They do the giant key under the mat thing to get inside, and just like, oh, wow, this place is fantastic. What's up? And then Superman goes over to his big old jar of balls. If you remember last issue, we had a reference to Superman's balls. As soon as Superman starts picking through these things, he's like, each of these is Kryptonian technology, and they'll do something different for each one. One of these is a Kryptonian continuum disruptor, and it will get rid of my powers for whatever amount of time, and this one also does other stuff. And Harley just takes a few and pockets them, just being like, wow, that's so cool, crazy cool. So one of them is basically a holodeck room, but it moves. It's oh god, it's I think from Dragon Ball Z. What is it? The chamber, whatever it's called. The thing that allows, like, oh, you spend a minute out in the real world, but inside it's like a day. And he's like, yeah, this will give us plenty of time to train, like 3 full days for the 24 hours that were given to us before. So no problem. We can get this fight looking good, and you can at least like stand a chance. You know, we'll make it look like it's not just a full-on knockout. Turns out this thing also responds to thoughts. So Superman makes a red sun so that he's powerless, and Harley's like, I imagine a pizza guy. And Superman's like, can we please just focus for a second here? And Harley's like, oh, what, like this? She throws a sucker punch and knocks Superman on his ass. Apparently 22 hours pass in this world, and Harley, to pass her boredom, has come up with the entire Justice League are all drinking and singing songs and arm wrestling each other. And when Superman comes back, he's like, oh, geez, okay, how long is I out? And it's like, oh, 22 hours. Don't worry, we still got 2 full days. And he's like, well, that's good, all right. And he disappears everything away, except there are 2 robots left standing there. And Harley's like, oh, yeah, these robots were sent from the, whatchamacallit place, the guys, the scrubs. They said that we were breaking the rules by trying to extend our time limit. So in actuality, we're out of time. And they're like, wait, hold on. You said 24 Earth hours. And they're like, yeah, but you tried to break the rules. So like, that's null and void. We're taking you up now. So it's like, ah, damn it. All right. So they go up into the scrub space area. They meet the current champion named Hunka. Harley makes a bunch of puns about Hunya, And then as Harley like riles him up some more and like says like, oh, you know, I think I'll be able to take you down, no problem, whatever else like that. He takes a swing, Harley dodges it, and Scrub Prime, I'm just going to call him out, I don't even know if he has a name, sends them off to like the canteen area to get some food and stuff before the fight begins. And Superman's like, were you purposely riling that guy up? And he's like, yeah, that's part of my strategy. I get him all riled up and that makes him easier to beat later on. So the fight is announced, everything's going on. From all around the galaxy, people are coming to watch for either culture or for just seeing people beat the crap out of each other, so be it. And we see Lois and Jimmy have also arrived in order to act as like the English intermediaries to like broadcast this down to Earth. And there's a panel where Lois says, wait, hold on, Jimmy. If the Earth does get destroyed because something goes wrong here, we'll be the last two people from Earth. We'll be the last of humanity. And because we're the last of humanity, we'll have to, you know. And Jimmy goes, what the hell, Lois? I don't think you like that. You're like my sister. And then we just move on. Like, that's the whole thing. I don't understand why it's here. So, yeah, Harley and Superman get their boxing gloves on. Jimmy does a whole thing. They do They do a single panel where Jimmy's like, all right, here they come, entering in now. And then there's just like front and center a picture of Donald Trump as he's like, I'm going to build a wall around these space aliens. It's going to be huge. And I'm like, yeah, all right, just do whatever you want, man. So they get in the ring. Robot gives them the rules, says like, all right, normal fighting, blah, blah, blah. And then we just get like 3-4 straight pages of Harley beating the crap out of Superman. It's like Superman is throwing punches, whatever, but Harley is just repeatedly doing slight fouls that she's not getting called on, and Superman's getting the ever-loving crap beaten out of him. Apparently a crowd chant starts going of fall down, telling Superman to either, you know, take it on the L, you're just not going to win this one, or for the love of God, he's already dead, please stop. But eventually Harley just like pulls back, says her knuckles are getting tired, and Superman just falls. He's down. So Harley wins the match. So at that point, she's like, wait a minute, hold on. He's hurt. He needs care for. And they load him up on the stretcher. We see this Scrub Prime, who again has a name that's like, it's a pun. It's like Rat Face or something like that. I don't care. He is saying like, well, we didn't have any deals to what happens with him afterwards. We're just going to like pulp him. And they're like, wait, no, hold on. I'm not going to fight unless you give Superman medical attention. You have to send him back down to Earth and get him medical attention, and only then will I fight. And he's like, I could just blow up the Earth if you're refusing to fight. And it's like, well, you've got a huge audience, and if they hear that you are declining this one simple thing from letting them see the main title card fight, they're going to be pissed. And he's like, fair enough. All right, fine. We'll send him down, but we're only sending one other human with female, so that's all that's going to be. So we see Superman and Lois get loaded in. Jimmy's left as like the announcer. He's left standing. Harley and Scrub Prime are left arguing with each other. And then for whatever reason, Scrub Prime is like, take him away to the brig. And they take away Jimmy. And he's like, I didn't even do anything. It's like, I don't like your hair. It's weird. So yeah, Harley chews him out a little bit, but she's ready to jump into the event. We see that there's another announcer who is announcing the weights of Hunka and Harley, and as soon as he gets to Harley, before he can say the number, she punches him out and says, you never say a woman's weight on TV like that. Get me another announcer. So then this other announcer pops up out of nowhere. I forgot about this bit. Right before the match starts, this glowing goddess appears named Pallas Athene and says, hello, I'm summoned by the faith of all people to moderate this contest. It will keep the rules clean, and you will not have any need for a referee machine, and all will understand the rules. And everyone, I will beam this into everyone's unconscious minds. And she's just a being of pure love and glowingness. And then Scrub Prime shoots her to death, and all the crowd's like, boo! And he's just like, what? We got the robot. The robot's fine. So it turns out Jimmy in the brig is not Jimmy, it's Superman. This was all part of some sort of plan where he's doing that, and then he has a Kryptonian ball that will allow him to get yellow sunlight energy back. So he eats it, I guess, and then he's able to use his Superman abilities to go out to the main control room, have the guy behind the desk call back the entire armada from Earth and get them all here now, so there's no threat against Earth anymore. Harley is getting her ass handed to her by Hunka. It's just absolutely horrible. Eventually she's like, all right, well, I got to take the boxing gloves off. I do better with bare knuckle. And they're like, that's against the rules. And she's like, who cares? Like, I'm doing it anyway. However, Superman sees this happening, like, oh, good, she's buying time. Like, she may be smarter than I give her credit for. And once all of the armada has arrived, Superman just flies through every last one of the ship, blows them all up. And as Harley tries to do an uppercut to Hunka, he just boom down to the ground. She pulls down his shorts and then manages to do like a Donkey Kong wind-up punch and punches him out of the ring. And immediately Scrub Prime is like, no, hold on, wait a minute, she cheated. She cheated, and now she's disqualified, and we're going to destroy the Earth because of it. And the whole crowd is like, that's bull, man. Screw that. You killed the glowing light lady. We don't like you anymore. So immediately, like, Hunka's also just like, how about we just kill Scrub Prime? That sounds cool. And the entire crowd rushes in to kill him. And Superman's like, I should really do something about that. And Harley's like, okay, but what if you didn't? And then they just leave. And as they're leaving, they have the ship. Superman turns to Harley and says, now, Harley, what about my balls? And Harley says, excuse me, Superman? And he's like, I saw you took a bunch of them. I want them back. And she's like, I was gonna. And she hands over some, clearly not all of them. And that's the issue. Okay, yeah. There's a lot to unpack in that one. I guess, do I think it's good? That's a major debate. I think it's what this book has been. It's exactly in line with everything else. Whether or not you like it is going to come down to whether or not you like Harley's style and the humor therein. I think it's fine. I think it's out of this whole series, I think that it's a fine entry and it does some moderately funny things, but almost all of it is just like ha ball joke, like how much can I really say on ha ball joke? Beyond that, it's art, Neil Adams, it looks great. It's of a specific time, and I'm like 99% sure Neil Adams did the Superman versus Muhammad Ali issue, which obviously this is pulling a lot from, but it's a weird little existence of a book. I'm gonna say another 7.5 for this one. It's still in line with some of the other issues from the series. I don't feel it's quite up to 8, but it's good. Each of these has been good for a double length book. It's telling a story and it's getting it done. Harley's Little Black Book, number 6, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Simon Bisley. It is the main man, it is Lobo, and it is very artistically different from pretty much every other issue of this series. So we open up with Harley just appearing in the brig of a spaceship. There's all of these aliens behind laser bars, and she's like, wait, hold on, what just happened? I teleported, where am I? And immediately these criminals are like, hey, open up the bars, do whatever, except for this one guy who threatens her and says, open the bars or I'll kill you. And she's like, I'm sorry, was that a threat? And he's like, yes, I'm T-Zar, killer of planets, open up the bars or I'll murder you and everyone you know. And she's like, well, I know you, T-Zar, like I just got your name, which means if I don't open the bars, you should probably start by killing yourself, right? And he's like, you make a fair point, but I have no weapons. And she's like, you got your hands? And then he starts strangling himself. And she's like, God, these idiots. As she's looking around, she sees like there's a bunch of guns on the wall, stuff like that. She's very interested in it. When all of a sudden there's a spaceship that is shaped like a giant fist, just punching its way through space. And that ship belongs to Lobo. Turns out that there's some sort of ship nearby, and they've moved into the space of it, and as Lobo goes to look at it, it is apparently a ship that belongs to the Space Pope, I guess, who's also potentially a bounty hunter. And we see Harley is on that ship. That's the one she's in, and she's got two big buttons, a green one and a red one. And she's like, which one will open the doors? Which one do I press? And every one of the prisoners just yells, for the love of God, don't press the red one. It'll kill us all. And she's like, but I like red. And she pushes it anyway. Inside of the ship, we see the space pope and a female employee are like, someone just opened up the prisoner hatch like into space, and it's like, well, that's impossible because that would kill all of them. Why would they do that? We see Lobo's waiting outside, and he sees the hatch open up, and there's just meat pouring out, dead bodies, because all those people who were in prison, they're behind laser bars, so they get sucked out pretty easily, but they get chopped into like 100 pieces. They do so. Harley, she's holding on, but for some reason, all of her clothes, save for her, I guess, underwear, gets sucked off of her by the vacuum of space. So Lobo hops out on his motorbike. He's like, wait a minute, I recognize this piece of meat. That's Tizar, killer of word. This must be the bounties. They got killed before I could cash in on them. Well, screw this guy for taking away my bounties. And so he fires a big nuclear missile looking thing into the heart of this ship. The female employee of the ship is like, well, we're all going to explode. We need to evacuate. I'm a bail regardless of your orders, your space holiness. And the space holiness is just like, what? And then, yeah, that's a big, well, it's not exploding yet, but Harley sees it sink into the ship and is like, wow, that's a big missile. I guess I should let go. Hopefully the vacuum of space will save me. And of course she falls right onto the motorcycle of Lobo, who activates an oxygen shield. And she's like, well, hello there, big, pale, and handsome. We see that Lobo also has a dog. Its name is Dog, D-A-W-G. So as Harley is getting introductions from Lobo, he's saying like, oh, the annihilators of all the Sarnians and all this other stuff. He's getting warnings from his computer basically saying, sir, you have 3 seconds before that missile goes off. And he's like, stop interrupting. And then the missile goes off. So he's being blasted by debris. He's trying to outrun it. He gets a call back from his AI saying, sir, you parked the ship right in the lane of most of the debris. We're all going to die. Goodbye. And so the ship explodes. Harley and all of them, they're trying to outrun the explosion. They're caught in the atmosphere of this planet nearby. So it's like, well, we're going to have to land there. And just full entry speed. We see Lobo shields Harley from the heat of it. And he's like, well, I got a feeling that you wouldn't regenerate as well as I do. And she's like, yeah, good guess. So they land in the ocean, which burns away Harley's top and also most of Lobo's pants. Some real perverts working on this book. So yeah, as Lobo starts regenerating, he stands up and Harley's like, hey, where'd your clothes go? He's like, they burned up on re-entry. And she's like, you don't look so bad. And he's like, yeah, you yourself. And they just ogle each other for a minute there. And then Harley makes the joke of like, oh, are you done regenerating? And like looks down at his crotch and he's just like, we're standing in cold ocean water. Cut me a fragging break. So they go onto the shore. Lobo's like, look, no one's going to even think of coming to rescue us here. This is like a nothing planet, so we're going to have to start worrying about food and a shelter. And he heads off into this forested area to find some animals. Harley sews together some leaves out of nothing to be able to make a top so that the sensors don't have to work overtime. And I guess he thinks that she is a bounty. And that's the whole reason she was in there. She doesn't understand what that means. So she's like, oh, well, are we role-playing here that you're my captor and I'm your prisoner? Oh, I'm so scared. And he's like, well, you are my prisoner. And she's like, ooh. So they go into the woods. And we see that they're literally just looking for food and water. That's all it is. Harley says that she's a lover of animals. She doesn't want to like hurt anything around here. But at the same time, later on, she says like, yeah, I also love how they taste. So they see some storm clouds on the horizon. Lobo's like, that's not going to be good. Immediate downpour. It's horrific. They make their way up to a cave on a cliffside, but it looks dark and dangerous. So Lobo throws a stick and says, go get it, dog. And there's a deep silence, nothing happening, but Dog doesn't return. And then all of a sudden there's a bunch of eyes on them. And they're like, well, that's a bad sign. Time to run. So they start sprinting through the forest. Lobo says, hey, you go on ahead. I can regenerate, and I got to get revenge for my dog. So he turns around, and it's this horrific-looking half-tentacle, half-teeth monster. And he's just like, all right, yeah, stop your screaming. So he fights against it, starts ripping stuff off. Harley's just watching nearby like, I wish I had some popcorn. This is fantastic. And eventually he dives into the mouth of the creature, fetches his dog, along with a giant bone from the inside. And he starts ripping apart the tentacles, saying, all right, this will do us some good for eating. And so they start chowing down. Lobo finally asks, okay, if you're not a bounty, what are you? What happened? And she says, in the last issue, I stole Superman's balls. And I will not explain, one of those balls apparently was a teleportation ball. And she used it, and it just sent her to this random-ass ship in the middle of space. And she has the feeling, the vibe, that eventually it'll just wear off. But she doesn't know when that will be. Maybe a couple hours, maybe a couple months, who knows? So she's just living in the moment at this point. Lobo once again says, like, well, this planet sucks, so you better hope we teleport back, or you teleport back home soon, because there's no way you're going to be able to either. But he's basically like, all right, after fighting that monster, diving inside of it, I reek. I'm going to go hit the local waterfall I saw nearby. You want to join? And he's like, yeah, sure. They both strip down. It's more perverted stuff, but they start getting a little bit like romantic with each other. They start smooching, and she says, oh, I think there's a snake in the water. And he's like, you don't have to flatter me. And then this giant ass snake thing comes out of the water, and she's like, that's not yours, right? And he's like, no, what? No. So look, this entire book, when I say the censors, it's been positioning, it's been shading, it's been like turning away, making sure that nothing can be seen, the standard stuff, you know. I guess this page DC editorial was like, no, you can't do this, because as they're fighting this giant snake monster, both of them completely nude, there's a couple of rear shots of Harley that there is a clearly put in after the fact little flag guy that runs around like diving in front of Harley's ass shots. And it's so weird to see. But regardless, they don't call attention to it, and it's just like, yeah, all right, there, we did it. We took out the snake monster. They start trying to get sexy again, but then Lobo smells something, and she's like, how dare you? And he's like, no, I smell alcohol. I can smell it from miles away. It's really powerful stuff. There must be someone on that ridge over there. And as he comes over the ridge, we see it's that female employee from the Space Pope ship. She crash landed here on an escape pod, but Lobo's like, oh, God, that's my ex. She broke up with me. And Harley's like, oh, my God, do you still have a crush on her? Do you still want to be with her? Oh, my God, I can help reunite you guys. I can totally come in there and do all that. And Lobo's like, shut it. I don't want to talk about this. This is awful, whatever. But she may be our only way to escape, so, you know, do whatever you got to do. Up in space, there's a pirate ship. Belongs to a Captain Conway. Moving on. As Harley approaches the female employee, I know she has a name, but, like, I could not tell you what it is there. Where I found she's been Katina Rev. It will not come up again. She's talking to Katina and is like, hey, me and my buddy, we crashed here. We heard that you were sending out a distress signal. That's why the space pirate thing was a thing, because they heard the distress signal. We heard you were sending out a distress signal. Can we bow along? Can we come with you? And she's like, depends. Who's your friend? And then Lobo steps out, and they start like talking, and she's just like, oh, God, I don't want anything to do with you, Lobo. And I was like, same to you, but we're out of options here. And then Harley picks up a shotgun that Katina had and starts trying to load it, not having much luck. And the entire time she's doing so, she's basically saying, hey, if I had known that you and Lobo were a thing, Katina, I wouldn't have gotten naked with him. I wouldn't have made out under a waterfall naked with him. I got really super duper naked with him. Did I mention we were naked? And she just keeps on poking that over and over and over again until eventually Katina's like, you bitch, and jumps after her, to which Harley then accidentally, apparently, pulls the trigger of the shotgun and blows off Katina's head. And she's like, oh, God, that's not what I meant to do at all. I was just trying to, like, force her to recognize that she still had feelings for you by making her jealous. Can you fix her completely exploded head? And Lobo's like, no, we can't. She's dead now. So he looks at the escape pod, says there's only just enough fuel to get them out into orbit. It's completely useless. But then Harley sees the giant space pirate ship, and she's like, hey, we're saved. And he's like, ah, crap, no, we're not. This guy's also a bounty hunter, and he will just straight up kill us. Like, he does not take his bounties alive or dead. He just takes them dead. But I do have a plan as to how we can use his own crew against him, sort of thing. So we see the crew comes in and they're like, all right, everyone, the distress signal's coming from over there. What do you see? And they look through the binoculars and it's like, there's a naked lady up there. And immediately the whole crew starts scrambling for the binoculars, going nuts. Lobo's like, are they coming? Are they coming over to see you? And she's just like, no, they're just fighting over binoculars. And Lobo's like, all right, well, this isn't working. We got to get the hell out of here before they show up. He hands Harley back her top. But they got distracted for a moment, and the rest of the crew comes up, and it's just like, Lobo, you're here. So Lobo and Harley get tied up. Turns out that the way he brings his crew, his bounties in dead, is by using these slugs that eat all of the meat and only leave the bones. And because Lobo has such a unique bone structure, it's good enough for the bounty. Harley says, no, let me go first. Ladies first. And there's like, well, this will be extremely painful. And she goes, for you. Not actually, but she should have. And she kicks the jar, causes a slug to eat one of the pirate crew. Lobo and her start laughing, to which Lobo then just rips the tree he's tied to out of the ground and starts beating the crap out of all the guys. As he's doing so, suddenly the heads of the pirates start exploding from shots being fired, and he's like, damn, you pirates have some really bad aim. This is horrible. And Harley's like, actually, it's me. The slugs chewed me out of my ropes. They see me as their mommy. And so the only pirate left is the captain, and he's like, you killed my whole crew, but I've got this red matter bomb that'll blow up this whole goddamn planet, and we'll all go with. And you're not getting away from me now, Lobo. And Lobo's like, yeah, all right, we got no escape here. We're doomed. And then Harley's like, wait a minute, hold on. I feel tingly. And so she holds on to Lobo, and they all teleport away. And the captain's like, dang it. So he explodes. We then go back to Coney Island, where Dog, who was biting onto Lobo's legs, Harley and Lobo show up. And she's like, oh, hey, we're back on Earth. And Lobo's like, oh, Earth, with all those people flying around in spandex. Yeah, I'm a hard pass on that. I'm out. And Harley's like, you know you're going to miss me. It is the whole thing. And he's like, yeah, maybe, but you talk a lot. So later, nutcake. And as he walks away, she says, oh, me and the pacey bastards. That's the issue. So horny. It's go to horny jail. You too horny of a book. I mean, I guess, this is like, I don't want to say prime 90s. Harley is just a little bit into the 2000s for me, as at least in this rendition. Obviously, she started in the animated series, but like, it feels prime 90s. It feels like it's right up that alley. It's very scratchy art style, very different as well. I mean, it feels different. I guess that's the biggest thing. It feels very different to the rest of the series. It feels almost like its own standalone one-shot thing, which based off of release dates, this was, going by books released as part of the New 52, this was the last issue. This was released like a full year and some months after the start of Rebirth. So this book was heavily delayed. It took a while, but yeah. I almost want to say 8, just because I think that the art style is creative and individual enough that like it really is something different. And I was actually getting an interest visually out of reading it, whereas the other ones feel a little bit more stock standard. But I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough to overcome just the general horniness of the book, the overuse of just like them yelling at each other and then start making out. I don't know. It feels a bit trite, is I guess the biggest thing. So I'm going to say flat 7. If it's not at the 8, it's all the way down to the 7. There's no in between on this one. It's still good. It's still well written and it's got decent pacing. It's just, I don't know. It's just not for me. And I'm amazed that we made Superman's balls a thing for 3 issues. That's incredible that managed to work out. So yeah, that's Harley's Little Black Book, a strange little thing that existed at the end of the New 52. And that's it. That is a bunch more of the books that came out from DC Comics after the Rebirth one-shot came out, but technically still count as the New 52. That is much more of a mouthful than I'm used to saying at the end of these episodes, but it is the case. So what have we got next week? Well, next week, we got the finale. I split this thing up over 3 episodes. This is episode 249. Next is 250, and you bet your sweet ass I'm ending it at 250. Nice round number there. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Love it. But that does mean that I've got like 25 comics to get through. A couple of them are annuals. It's going to be a beast of an episode. So I got 1 week to figure that out. It's going to be great. Let me tell you what we are looking at there. So I've saved a bunch of these books that are a bit more mainline. I wanted to end this on a strong note, So we've got Earth 2 Society. Already, the mainline thing is out the door. But there is a thing about Earth 2 Society. I'll get to it in a second. So Earth 2 Society, wrapping that up. Teen Titans, got to wrap that up. Justice League of America, the Brian Hitch story. That one's got 2 more issues. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman Superman, both of those technically ended. They were done, but there were some issues that were only ever published in the trade paperbacks, and because I happen to have those, I figured, why the hell not? So I will be covering those as well. That's 2 issues for Superman, Wonder Woman, and 3 issues for Batman, Superman. And then finally, I have the final 2 issues of Justice League. Figure that's going to be the strongest one to end on. That's like, we end on Justice League 52. I give my heartfelt goodbye, and then I coast off into retirement with the whole $0.00 I've made from this show. But I did say I'd get back to Society. So, based off of my description of things, you might think, well, that doesn't sound like that much. You've got like 4 issues of Teen Titans, 2 issues of Justice League. Where is the length of this episode coming from? Well, I'll tell you, dear viewer, Earth 2 Society went on for 2 full trades worth of books, including an annual, after the New 52 ended. Why? Who knows? I don't think anyone in editorial was paying attention to that book, and they were just like, well, I've got to cash a paycheck. Dan Abnett's like, I got Aquaman, but I'm just going to keep on doing this for a while. So, yeah, be ready for like 12 issues of Earth 2 Society. And then Justice League. So yeah, that's next week's episode. That's the finale of this entire show. We were all leading up to 12 issues of Earth 2 Society. God, I'm going to lose my mind after that. Anyway, I really don't have much more to say here. You've been watching the show. We got a Discord, a subreddit, Patreon. If you want to share any thoughts, put them in the comment section down beneath the video or wherever the hell you're watching this. I'll do my best to find them. I really do Google myself quite often. So thank you very much for watching, listening. However you consume this podcast, be sure to tune in for the final episode next week. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.